just found it interesting that Biden's being Biden's being extremist.
Second try at this. First time I didn't have the sound right. Check marked. That's my fault. So I'm gonna try it again. Let me bring this back out so you can see that. Okay, here we go. Let me play the recording. This is from Spaces last night. I only listened to part of this, so hopefully, the part I did listen to was pretty good. So we'll listen to all of it together here. Hopefully.
Impeachment.com. We're doing a space today about the struggle of the Marco Polo team that has made it possible to have an inquiry against Joe Biden, an impeachment inquiry in the House. Their work made all of that possible. They're going to join us today to talk a little bit about that and talk about how the Biden family is now attacking them to try and silence them. And I'm just letting the room fill up a little bit, and then we're going to get started momentarily. I hope that you are all going to be helping Marco Polo today, because this is what this is about. These guys are under attack, and it's a vicious attack by Biden's henchmen trying to stop them from basically cooperating with the House on this impeachment inquiry. They have written over 600-page report dissecting the Biden laptop and putting together a list of crimes and statutes that the Bidens were engaged in. And obviously, the Bidens are very unhappy about this, because without this work, it simply would not have been possible to have this current impeachment inquiry in the House. So it's a pretty big deal. It's a relatively small team of, a handful of people that put all of this together and spend a lot of time, working on this to bring the truth to the public, to let Americans know what the Bidens have been doing, how they have brokered their power, sold their power to foreign countries to make money on the backs of, the work that Joe Biden did as vice president. They've raised, a substantial amount of money with their corruption. But Gareth is going to go into details about that. A lot of these facts are now known because of the Marco Polo report. We're going to give you links where you can access that data. The report is available. You can even buy the book that has all of the contents of the laptop in a neatly organized fashion, so you can really understand what all the crimes are that have been committed by the Bidens, how their whole corruption scheme worked, and who the parties were that were involved in that. And this report became the basis for the work of James Comer and his team at the House Committee to put together the case against Joe Biden. I'm inviting on stage Marco Polo. Garrett, are you there?
Yes, sir. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. We all appreciate it.
Yes. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you have done, what your work entails, and what the results are.
Well, thank you again. And this is an honor. This attack has been a multi-vector approach. After we published our report, as you alluded to, in October of 22, which is hard to believe it's been 14 months. But starting in February of this year, Kim, by they, I mean the Biden family and their attorneys, have sent letters to at least 5 different government agencies. And
one thing, Garrett, real quick, your connection is a bit choppy. I'm not sure why you're like cutting in and out a little bit. Can you try and see if you can fix that?
Yes, maybe I'll move the mic farther away from. Is that a little bit better?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Sorry about that. I need to have a mic guard. But this, I'll start with the attacks and then maybe explain why those are coming so vociferously and from many different directions, and why we're quite literally the underdog in terms of capital, numbers, and resources in the media. So, this has been going on for 10 months now, and we've had to hire 5 different attorneys to handle the different attacks. For example, they wrote to our uh, nonprofit contact point at the IRS, the one who assigned us our nonprofit status, and demanded that we lose our nonprofit status. And the evidence they put forth, Kim, was that I went in my completely personal capacity, meaning I wasn't going on behalf of an organization, to a political event. And I made that very clear. And in fact, the exhibit they attached to the letter to the IRS showed that I said I was going in my personal capacity. So the quality of their evidence against us is very poor, but that hasn't stopped them. And these attacks, I think, will continue to come as long as Joe views us as a threat. And the reason why they view us as a threat is not because we're evil geniuses or anything else. It's just because we've put the source data out there. Think about this: no other organization, um, no matter how big they are, has actually done the work of creating a database of the data. So what they realized is that all these other media organizations, when they write articles about the Biden family, a lot of them link back to our email site because we put all the emails online. And I think just as importantly, we allowed viewers to download the emails themselves. So they're not just taking our word for it, and they're able to investigate the metadata themselves. And so while tragically, Julian Assange is rotting in a terrible prison because of evil people. I don't want to say we filled in that gap, but we did it for just this device. We put the source data out there. And once you do that, and once they've realized that all these other organizations are using that source data to dig deeper, they said, well, we're not going to go after these other media organizations. We're going to go right towards the source. And so that is really the background. We've been the small but lean fountain that has supplied the world with the emails, the photos, and the other documents from the device. And I guess why this matters, if nobody's ever heard of me before, if you're just joining this, is because this was a global FAR violating scheme where Joe was tacitly overseeing the family operation. And one of the speakers in the space today that I'm honored to know was actually a high school classmate of Hunter Biden's, and he's known this family for decades. His name's Tyler Nixon. He's a speaker here, and he's been helping us fight back on this because he knows how Joe has operated. And if we didn't have his laptop, here's another way of putting it: everybody has known that the U.S. president will trade on his family's name, and that he's sort of the chairman of this operation. Kim has known that since more than a decade now, ever since they partnered with Chris Dodd to go after his company. But if his son didn't leave this laptop, it's basically a portal through which we see the global elite making plans. We described it as a new Rosetta Stone. The Biden laptop is a new Rosetta Stone. That doesn't mean that it has all the answers, but it's an open source intelligence translation tool. So for example, Victoria Nuland, I think the princess of Euromaidan and the war that's costing so many lives and resources right now. Victoria Nuland is not in the laptop directly, in the sense that she's not an interlocutor with Hunter, but they're discussing Victoria Nuland in the emails. And so, and I want to urge everybody on this space to not take my word for it. We just made a post, minutes ago, linking you to all the source data. We're a charity. Everything we've produced has been put out for free. And if you don't want to search our email database, you can download the emails in your own format. Let's say you like Thunderbird or Outlook, or for some reason you like Outlook. You can download the email files and open them in your own mail viewer. And I think that's very important because we're meeting people where they are, and we're making it as easy as possible for them to see what their first family is like. This has never happened before in
Yeah.
American
So
history.
one question real quick. People can access all this data on websites that you've created, so they can see everything that's in the book that you guys have created, 600 plus pages. They can see all the crimes listed. Where do people go if they want to browse around the data while we are talking here? Like, can you put a tweet out and put it up on the Nest to let people know what links to go to be able to see all of this in real time? And then another thing that I wanted to say, I've been studying the WikiLeaks archive and the Snowden archives for years. So when I got your data and I was able to browse through all the detailed communications and everything, someone with the background knowledge that I have, for me, it was so clear and obvious what was going on. The language that was being used, the tricks that were being used, the shadow companies that they used to do their corruption scheme. Like, everything was so easy for me to understand. But I do get it that some people will struggle, who are new to this, who don't have this kind of background. But what you have provided with your detailed database and all the emails, and then connecting them to important facts, is such an excellent work. I couldn't have done it any better. And kudos to you and your team to really make it so easy to understand for people what has been going on there. And it's literally an endless crime spree that you have uncovered. How many crimes have you and your legal team discovered on this laptop data?
The final number that we have on the device is 459. That's 459 violations of state and federal laws and regulations. Most of those are committed by the Biden family, but we also count accomplices in that. So we have the final number of what's on this single device. Imagine if we had another laptop of Hunter's or another iPhone file backup of Hunter's. This is just one peephole, right? Think about that. It's one peephole into the American first family, and it uncovers. In as a nerd, I don't. It's not good enough for somebody to say, "Hey, we know you've committed 459 crimes." There has to be specificity. So
Yeah.
the chart that you just posted, it has the exact date, the exact venue in terms of legal parlance, right? I mean, there's whole bodies of legal theory in the United States of where you can bring a case based on the Sixth Amendment, and we cite the exact venue, who precisely was involved, and then which precise federal statutes, state statutes, or federal and state regulations they violated. We have a standing bounty because we care about accuracy so much. It's what drives us. We have a standing bounty for $1,000 for a material error, because we're not saying we're above errors. We could make a mistake, but so far over 14 months, nobody can find a material error. And the reason why I bring that up is not to brag, but it's to say that we don't have a particular vengeance. We're not driven by vengeance. We're driven by truth. If Hunter
You told
did,
me, if I may interrupt you, you told
yeah,
me that you deeply care about America, that you deeply care about the Constitution, and that it is repugnant to you, the level of corruption that is taking place in the political landscape in the United States, and how that is basically ruining the country. And
it's
you wanted to change that. Your whole mission is to put the United States back on a path where politicians are not filling their own pockets and are not acting in a corrupt fashion for either the deep state, the military industrial complex, or big pharma. You want politicians to focus again on the people. Is that right?
oh, it's totally correct, and we are entitled to that. We're entitled to people who have the power vested under our Constitution to put the public interest first. And I think that, with this level of specificity, people may, if they are, let's say they have different political views than me, they may have a visceral reaction to this data, Kim. But we're about being sober and looking at the source data. I'll just cite one example. If you don't believe, that Jimmy and Sarah Biden committed bank fraud on August 16th, 2017, in the Southern District of New York, as just one row in those 2 pages of columns you tweeted out. If they don't believe that, let's have a conversation on what constitutes bank fraud. I think that we are not a political activist organization. We are a research group, and we don't work for particular candidates. Because of my former employment, people have derided and think that we're being paid by the former president. It's not true. We're paid by small dollar grassroots donors. We put this together because we knew that the bigger organizations, for example, like the Heritage Foundation, they wouldn't create a database like this because they're too litigation averse.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
we talked about that. I mean, you told me no matter who the president would have been, Trump or Biden or whoever, if this level of corruption would have been, known to you, you would have gone after them. It doesn't matter who the president is. What matters to you is that America has leadership that is working for the people and not for their own bank account. And I found
yeah.
that remarkable when we met in New Zealand. You totally convinced me that you are in it for the right reasons, and that's why I decided to work with you guys. Another thing that is important for people to understand: this entire impeachment inquiry now would not have been possible without the work of your team, because James Comer could go into your files, identify all the things that he needs to subpoena, from bank records to witness statements to getting all the information to fill the gaps, because there are a lot of gaps. Like you said, this is the laptop of one person. There are people who are emailing to Hunter Biden where the entire email chain is not visible. So, obviously there needs to be an inquiry into those people. There needs to be discovery about the communications and how deep they went and who else was involved. But without your work that you've put together with the source material, I think James Comer would never have been able to pull this off and get to the stage of an impeachment inquiry. So everyone in the room here needs to understand that this was only possible because of the work of your team.
We're honored by that. I don't know how this is all going to end up, but it's definitely, I think, unprecedented that we would have this much primary source material on a sitting president. We've said repeatedly that usually this level of clarity only gets provided decades after they've left office, when a presidential library opens. But I will admit, it's so weird that somebody is in office and it's all out there. And again, I just want everybody listening to this, that if you support us or if you read our report, it's totally legal. This was legally abandoned at a repair shop, and it's gone. It's under Delaware state law. It's so under the work order that the president's son signed. He just simply, because he was on drugs and he left 2 other laptops there, he just simply forgot to retrieve the device. And so if you're just starting out, if you don't know anything about this whole entire saga, that's the genesis of it. He leaves a laptop at a repair shop April 12th, 2019, and our report goes into that. We have a whole timeline section. We have we break the report up into business related crimes, sex related crimes, drug related crimes. But before that, we go through all the players. So you're not flying blind. Don't be discouraged by the length of it. It's 644 pages, yes, and it's free to read at bidenreport.com. But there's also, half of the pages exhibits. So there's only about 375 pages of text, and you can get through that, and it it gets people up to speed. Like if you know nothing about this entire saga and why we're being attacked, if you start at page 1 and take a week and read this, you'll be up to speed on who the players are. For example, the president appointed on the very first day of his administration the law partner of Hunter Biden's attorney to oversee the criminal division of the DOJ. His name is Nick McQuaid, and he's now gone back to Latham and Watkins, where he was a partner with Christopher Clark. These types of scenarios are laid out with who, what, when, where, why, and how. And I think that I can't. There's such a steep learning curve to what and to piggyback off what Kim was saying. When the committees were in the minority in 21 and 22, that's when we did all this work. So starting in January, they hit the ground running because I met with all of the staffers and some of the congressmen and senators. Senator Ron Johnson has been looking into the Biden family for over 5 years, and he's talked about our report publicly on multiple occasions that this is really the work of a congressional subcommittee. But the difference between a congressional subcommittee and us, among others, Kim, is not so much the size, but the resources that their whole goal is to take us off the playing field, and that's why we need reinforcements quickly. And I think that what makes our lawsuits unique is if we win, it's like England, where the loser pays because we're invoking anti-SLAPP statutes and other things, that these are by nature frivolous suits, and therefore if and when we win, we will be entitled to lawyers' fees. And that's the whole goal of the SLAPP suits, is to take us off the field, stop looking at the email, stop looking at the source data, and defend us in court. And my friend Tyler, who's a long high school classmate with Hunter and an attorney, is a speaker, and I think he can say a little bit about this, because I'm not an attorney, although we have attorneys on the team, and Tyler's one of them. I think that this has gone on for so long in America, and I think that even if we prevail, part of their goal is to have headlines at NBC saying, Hunter Biden sues Marco Polo, and people don't follow up and see, how did that lawsuit actually, like what's the end result? Were they actually found liable? And of course, in a fair system, we're not. This has already been gone through in the Pentagon Papers. Imagine if the publisher of the Pentagon Papers got in trouble. This is we've already touched on these questions. We're totally free to publish this material.
And let's be clear, Garrett. Anything that happens here against you will happen with the knowledge of Joe Biden and the approval of Joe Biden, because this is a case, an impeachment case against Joe Biden. Anything that happens here, Hunter lives with him in the White House. They talk every day. None of this attack against you is without the knowledge and the approval of Joe Biden. And Joe Biden and his henchmen want to take you out. They want to silence you. They want to make sure that you are not available to the committee as a witness, that you are not available with your huge amount of knowledge about this case, that you are no longer talking about this publicly. This is what this is all about. They want to silence you and want to take you off the chessboard. Is that right?
It's absolutely right. And even the Biden's media partners admit that. There was a big piece in Politico on Friday about this very thing, about how Hunter lived in the White House for months this year. He still does, part-time. And they talk every single day. And to add proof to our allegations, for the entirety of 21 and 22, Marco Polo was publishing material. We came out with the email database in May of 22, but Hunter had a different attorney at that point who wasn't willing to engage in lawfare. But ever since Hunter hired Abby Lowell, and Joe approved of this, they've been suing us and writing letters to government agencies to have us be criminally prosecuted. Their entire case revolves around that we're not legitimate publishers, which is preposterous because we have a retraction rate of 0. We've never had to retract anything that we publish because we're not always the first. The reason why I bring this up and why it's so critical is if we don't have the protections that publishers have, their lawfare is going to ruin us. But if we make the case cogently and the data shows that we're essentially the 21st century version of pamphleteers, Kim. And, the American Revolution wouldn't have been possible without people like Thomas Paine and other private citizens coming together and using a godforsaken printing press in their home office to we're pamphleteers of a sort. So what the first family is trying to do is damage and ruin the lives of pamphleteers, and the contents of the pamphlets are very simple. They're their own emails, their own pictures, their own documents.
So they want
We've
to bankrupt you. That is their goal. They want to bankrupt you. They know the lawsuits are frivolous. They know they are baseless. But by putting you into these cases, they know you need to expend money on lawyers. They want to basically, in a war of Abi, just make you bankrupt and destroy, your ability to pay for your expenses, pay for your life, and basically take you off the case against the Biden corruption by putting these frivolous lawsuits out, and numerous lawsuits. Am I right?
Yes, and if they give these lawsuits to media outlets, the media outlets will write negative articles such that the impeachment members will be reticent to call our group as a witness, even though I am absolutely confident that we would approach that task with sobriety and a commitment to the truth above all things. For example, if somebody looks at our X account and looks at our replies, we correct false information about the president's son quite often. We have no interest in spreading any falsehoods about Hunter Biden. And that's why they can't prove actual malice, and it's why these complaints are so ridiculous. There is some false information floating out about Hunter and who he had, let's just say, conjugal relations with. And we've to use a left-wing phrase, we've debunked that all for over a year. So, they're trying to paint us and tar and feather us as political activists, so that the people engaging in the inquiry won't call us as witnesses publicly. But all we can do is spread this information. Some people on this space may not be able to give money, and I totally understand. If you can, do so. But if you can't, spread these URLs to every single person that needs to see them. And something interesting is going to pop out. What you may find interesting in these emails is not what other people are going to find interesting. And although I personally, Garrett Ziegler, have gone through all 128,000, I'm bound to forget some of them. And there's people on X here who have uncovered things that we haven't, and that's the whole point of us releasing these, Kim. We don't want to guard this source data. Think about all the data, all the evidence of corruption out there that's guarded, that's not released, that's held as an exclusive. We're not holding anything back. We want every single person who wants to dig for the truth to be able to do so without our supervision or approval. Right? We just
So let's be clear, Garrett. If you don't get help, and if we don't raise enough money, the Biden family is likely to succeed in bankrupting you, because they will just put more and more pressure on you. They will just keep you in the courts and create legal fees for you. So unless we, get help from people here, from people who are spreading the word, from good people who want the justice to prevail, who want the truth to come out, unless we get their help, the Bidens may succeed in bankrupting you, right?
they know that it's a war of attrition, and they're going to see how many people rally around us. They realize what we have is strength in numbers. So if a ton of people give a smaller amount, that will keep us afloat, and that will keep and I don't have to take, don't take my word for it. Look at the lawsuits that they've filed against us. Their prayers for relief, quote unquote, what they actually seek from the court is for us to take down our websites, number one, pathetically and hilariously. And number two is to return all of the donations that we have ever received that is in a lawsuit. So it's not just that I'm making this underdog story up. Their prayers for relief explicitly ask the court to bankrupt us. That's what they want to do. And Abby Lowell and other people who are doing this legal work, they've done this in other venues, and they're relying on our small team to not marshal the reinforcements that we need. And that's why I'm grateful we're doing this space and it's being recorded, and so that this message can be replicated throughout. And one thing I love the most is we get our DMs are open, and one thing we receive in DM.
He cut out.
Sorry, you cut out. I'll give him a minute to come back. What I would like to say to everyone here today is, you can see the tweet up in the nest that I made just before the space started. There are 2 links where you can help Marco Polo by donating either fiat, so dollars, or crypto. There are 2 different links for that. I do urge you to help them out, because without assistance, the Bidens are going to succeed in bankrupting Garrett and destroying the great work that they have done, Polo has done. And also, I would like to announce here today that every single dollar that we raise today, I will double it. So any penny that you put into this to help Gareth and his team out, to help Marco Polo for the great work that they have done to make this Biden impeachment inquiry possible, I am going to double it. So every dollar you spend here will be worth twice as much. Gareth, are you back?
Tim, it's John Mappin here.
Yeah, hi, John.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this space. I just I've listened to what you've said, and this is really quite shocking application of lawfare. It's not entirely unexpected, even, and you've got a tremendous amount of experience of how insidious the Biden family can be when it comes to their personal attacks on you with your case. But the truth of the matter is how much do we need to raise to help this group?
I think the overall amount that we put on the donation side is $500,000, but anything helps. Like, that's a goal that we will have to raise over the next coming years, defending the lawfare attacks by the Biden family. But by all means, I mean, any small amount that can be donated now would help. It doesn't need to be the full amount right now. I will continuously be doing spaces for Marco Polo to raise more, and I'm going to make sure that everyone is in my orbit is going to be aware about helping these guys.
Well, it's a very, very just cause, and certainly I'm very, very glad to be part of getting behind this. And thank you so much for bringing it to everybody's attention. I've shared it in about 20 groups just now, and I know a lot of my friends will feel very, very strongly that this type of lawfare is completely and utterly unacceptable. It's very much a modern trend, though, isn't it?
I'll jump in.
Yeah, that's the only way they can go after Marco Polo, because they haven't committed any crime. They haven't done anything wrong. These guys have literally just taken the data that they have gotten legal possession of and put it together in a format that everyone can understand, basically educating the whole world about the crimes that the Bidens have committed. And that is what the Biden family is trying to punish them for.
Yeah, it's a formidable.
Can you all hear me?
Really, isn't it? And
okay, great. This is Tyler. First of all, I just can't imagine a better person or a more appropriate person to host this than Kim. Kim, your work has been amazing over the years. You're a titan, And your work in itself is just monumental. And you mentioned Julian Assange, and who unfortunately is probably the injustice done to this man is on just beyond imagination. But I would say that Garrett and the Marco Polo Group, they follow in Julian's footsteps and they have the key ingredient out of all this is not necessarily analytical skill or talent necessarily in research. It's courage, and this is what that Garrett and the his team demonstrate that, frankly, is lacking and has been lacking in anywhere in Congress, anywhere in law enforcement, in the face of brazen criminality of an epic scale, of a defiant scale. Um, as far as money raising, I mean, as much as can be raised, you could see just the preliminary motions, the preliminary stages of a lawsuit, a complex lawsuit in federal court cost $250,000, and that's before you even come close to a trial. So, and this is clearly the obviously the intent of Lowell brought in as this mercenary apparatchik, basically. And with Hunter Biden, they're clearly following. I mean, you couldn't approximate more closely the Hillary Clinton playbook of just absolute total defiance, no contrition in the face of absolute conclusive evidence, like as if in their own hands, they couldn't have written a confession better than what we've produced in Hunter Biden's massive trove of information, which I will say for the Clintons, at least, they're very clever and very devious and diabolical, and they're able to cover their tracks, and many of their grandiose schemes were very complicated and difficult to bore into and to figure out what exactly was going on enough to find the essential criminality behind it. Whereas the Bidens are just, I mean, really, they're if anything, they're lazy and they're not very clever. So they think that just forming a shell company and maybe passing the money through a few conduits is sufficient to throw the trail off. But really, above all, what they're relying on, what I think has become the most ominous revelation, if not development, out of all this, is the total and complete and thorough corruption of law enforcement and the Department of Justice, to where you have these prosecutorial teams and people at decisional level, prosecutors up to U.S. attorney, who are acting as though they are a Biden defense team, if not a total protectorate or the Praetorian Guard for this family. And interestingly, I think I would point out also that this is not, people think, well, what is it about Biden? I mean, he's a bumbling idiot. He's never been very popular. Why are they protecting him to such a degree? And what it comes down to is it's not, they're not protecting him. They're protecting their own asses, because they know that these agents and these people at these mid and upper level corrupt actors in law enforcement and the DOJ, they're up to their necks in it too. So it's like if Biden's exposed and all this comes to light, their crimes and their corruption will also be exposed. So they have a vested interest in it, and that's about the most clever aspect of it. I think that Biden or anybody involved, the Clintons, whoever is corrupt, Obama, they know how to co-opt people and make sure that they have skin in the game, so that they've got these people on a career survival mission, essentially, if not avoiding prosecution, is to keep a lid on these things and all this corruption. But I would say that the spectacle of defying a subpoena, a legal, lawful congressional subpoena, for which we just saw two top Trump aides who were asserting justiciable defenses to those subpoenas in the form of executive privilege, even though it was later shot down, which I think was a very erroneous ruling. But Hunter Biden, and rather than just not show up, rather than just stay quiet and let them, better to keep your mouth shut, instead rolls up to the Capitol, gets out on the Senate side, of course, facing House subpoena, lest he be arrested by the Sergeant at Arms in the House side, and makes a completely political or partisan diatribe, cites no legal foundation or basis whatsoever for his not appearing and defying the subpoena in contempt of Congress. So committing a crime, basically, right there. And standing next to him is his attorney, who engineered this whole thing and staged it. As you could see, he was sort of ushering him around, which last I checked, the rules on professional responsibility, an attorney is not supposed to counsel his client to commit crimes by any
Yeah,
stretch.
Tyler.
And Tyler, just to add here, very important, Hunter Biden lives with his dad in the White House. Nothing he does isn't approved by his father. His dad allowed this to happen. His dad is encouraging Hunter to break the law, to not show up for the subpoena, to not provide evidence under oath. That needs to be clear here. These are not Hunter's individual actions. This is all happening with the approval of his father.
Very good point. Sorry about that. I dropped off for a
Sure.
second.
Yeah. No, I would say,
apologize.
I think Joe is out to lunch. I think he's senile at this point. I think he's essentially a hollow puppet. And so I think the decisions are being made by the true force behind it, which would probably be the Obamas. And of course, Abby Lowell is a longtime Democrat hatchet lawyer who would make these sorts of judgment calls in terms of the PR campaign aspect of it. But one thing I think that they suffer from, that at least the Obamas and the Clintons, certainly as corrupt organizations, had, was a better sense of the public mind, or the public toleration for this, because to call them tin-eared, to pull the stunt that they did, and to think that Hunter Biden, with, if you even read 50 pages of this 600, how many pages, Garrett?
644.
Yeah, 644 pages. You could read 50 pages of it, and no one would conclude that Hunter Biden has clean hands, or is warranting or deserving of any sort of sympathy as, quote, battling drug addiction. I mean, this is criminality on an epic scale, and systematically and persistently of a nature that you cannot, there's no attempts to reform himself. I mean, everything's a ploy. So, that being said,
But,
Garrett, I'll
Tyler,
let you jump in there. I know you.
Well, just a quick word about the mechanics of his talk in front of the Congress on the 13th. That spot, like you said, on the Senate side of the Capitol, was actually reserved by Eric Swalwell, the congressman from California. And Eric Swalwell, in July, in an open committee hearing to Christopher Wray, asked and basically told Christopher Wray that our group, Marco Polo, and me particularly, Garrett Ziegler, were threatening FBI agents. And he basically made a criminal referral on the floor of the hearing to Christopher Wray. And what's relevant here is that standing by Eric Swalwell at that Hunter Biden press conference was Kevin Morris, who paid off Hunter Biden's back taxes and who gave Eric Swalwell $6,600 2 months before to basically make that statement. And, equally relevant to our lawfare fight, Kim, is that this lawsuit by Hunter is the second. Kevin Morris, the guy who was standing behind Hunter at the press conference, sued us back in April for ridiculous things like doxing. And of course, we won in part. He owes us legal fees. Kevin Morris does. But so this has been a mechanical attempt to take us down. So Kevin Morris sues us. Kevin Morris paid Eric Swalwell to tattle on us in an open hearing to Christopher Wray for completely lawful behavior. I want to reiterate, in the American First Amendment, you have a right to redress your grievances. You have a right to peacefully voice your displeasures with the U.S. government. And Eric Swalwell was trying to criminalize that. And so we know who is leading the charge. It's Kevin Morris is providing the financing. And Eric Swalwell was the one who reserved the space.
Yeah, if I may say about Eric Swalwell, first of all, he and Adam Schiff serially and brazenly violated the rules of the House Intelligence Committee. I'm personal counsel to Roger Stone and went through the agonies of his persecution. And I analyzed their behavior while they ran the committee and before they ran the committee, when it was still in Devin Nunes and the Republicans' hands. The members of the House Special Select Committee on Intelligence have to swear an additional oath in addition to the oath of House members, as do the staff, swearing that they will maintain the confidences and the classified materials of the committee, and that they will not, for example, when there's an executive session interview such as Stone's was, They will not discuss or disclose or even cause to be discussed or disclosed any material whatsoever that's derived, meaning anything whatsoever about the testimony of someone who's in executive session, because in part that executive session transcript, or that whatever's divulged in that, is considered classified material under those rules. Well, these people, I mean, the Rogers seat was barely cold before Swalwell, Schiff, Jackie Spear, Julian Castro were out on the cameras describing and characterizing Rogers' testimony, trying to set it up as they did ultimately for him to be caught up in some sort of phony, contrived false statements charges. And, you know, Swalwell should have been kicked off the committee, sanctioned, and potentially, I mean, expelled from Congress for this kind of behavior. So to see him out there suborning essentially defiance of a subpoena issued by the Congress, so
it's arguable that
I'm sorry,
it's arguable that he violated 18 USC section 2 of a commission of a felony, because you can argue that it would not have been possible for Hunter Biden to do that press conference without Eric Swalwell reserving. Remember when Hunter Biden walked up to the podium, all the mics were already there. And so the Secret Service guarding Hunter knew of and even facilitated the commission of a crime.
That's
because
right.
they had to guard off the area where Hunter's entourage, I mean, Hunter, who we have evidence of committing hundreds of violations of law, still gets, Secret Service protection. Although, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say there's also.
Let me
Yes,
chime in here
sure.
real quick. I think what's important for people to understand is that, without your work, we wouldn't be where we are. There would not have been a defiant Hunter Biden stepping in front of the microphones and saying, hey, I'm not going to be questioned in a closed, hearing under oath. I want this to be public. I want to be able to talk about my addiction and all of these things and crocodile tears. None of this would have happened if it wasn't for your work. And also, what's really important is we are at a crucial time in the United States. Things are really not going well. Corruption is everywhere. You see it with what's happening in Ukraine. You see it with how politicians are filling their monies from big pharma to the military-industrial complex. Americans are more aware now than they have ever been about what's happening in the United States and how their rights are undermined, how their chances for any kind of American dream or success or future, for them and their children are being destroyed by these corrupt people in power. So you are inspiring this whole movement of people that wants to change that wants to take America back. You are one of the fighters right at the front of the battlefield, taking America back from these corrupt forces. So anyone who wants that to happen and wants you to succeed needs to go and help you out now, because the Bidens are going after you hard. They want to bankrupt you. They want to put you in the ground. They want to silence you. And only with the help of good Americans like yourself who want to change this corrupt system will we be able to defeat them. So this is a call to arms for anyone in here who has enough of the corrupt establishment in the United States, riding, over the rights of Americans and undermining the Constitution and all of that, to come together, help Gareth and his team at Marco Polo out so that they can go on the offensive and not just, provide evidence, but be a continued source of information out there for anyone who's asking for doing spaces like this, for the media, to educate people about the level of blatant corruption, not just by the Bidens, but the entire Democratic Party and the Uni Party as well. There are Republicans as well who are part of this corrupt deep state cabal.
That's a very good point. One of the allegations is that were engaged in political activity, it could not be further from the truth. We actually criticize Republicans just as much, if not more, than Democrats in this report. For example, the letter that was authored on October 19th, 2020, that said the emails from the abandoned laptop had all of the earmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. More Republicans signed that letter than Democrats. They were people from the George Bush military industrial complex years that knew that the revelation and wide exposure and distribution of these emails would make a material difference in how people saw the next election. And so this is a uniparty problem. The members of our research team, there's me, Garrett Ziegler, two other members of our board who are publicly named, and then there's other lawyers, lawyers, private investigators, financial folks who went through each and every document. We're not, doing this for the Republican Party. In fact, we have righteously annoyed all the Republicans on the committee, sending them sections of our report to aid the investigation along. We've been displeased with some of the speed or some of the tactics of these investigations. That is why we want to have a voice and a seat in whatever the impeachment inquiry leads up to be. Because, for example, one person we've been studying very deeply is Joe's power of attorney. He is a man named Mel Monzak, and he lived just minutes away from where Tyler Nixon grew up. Mel has been the power of attorney for Joe since the 1980s, 1986 to be exact. And Mel has the power, obviously, through that document to sign on Joe's behalf, to collect debts on Joe's behalf, to receive money on Joe's behalf.
He is basically Joe Biden's money laundering.
He absolutely is. And if you're all wondering which section of our report you can read about Mel Monzak in, the page number it's going to be in the 50s. Here, give me not even 20 seconds. Mel is the registered agent for a shell company domiciled in the Cook Islands that was in the Panama Papers. So Mel Monzak's section starts on page 64, and it shows the power of attorney document that he signed with Joe, and he was the registered agent and the trustee of the Pendel Investment Trust that was exposed by the ICIJ with another one of Biden's law partners. I mean, he's known Mel since 1970. In fact, we'll have posted on our X page the exact link that you can see this Pendel Investment Trust. The other Biden law partner that I alluded to, but not by name, his name is David Walsh the First. So David Walsh the First and Mel Monzak are both former law partners, and they're named in the offshore database leak that's from the ICIJ. And it's all out there. So why does this matter? Why do I bring this up? Why do I belabor the point? Because the Republicans and anybody who's honest needs to realize that this stuff isn't necessarily going to be in Joe's direct name. Mel Monzak has the ability to set up companies and other things for Joe and not put his name on there. In the U.S. bribery statute. Yeah.
Basically, what you are saying is you know exactly where to look to find Joe Biden's money. You know exactly who are the henchmen, the money laundering guys in the background that have made sure that he has this web of companies where he can receive, money for all of his corrupt dealings. And the $20 million that James Comer is talking about are really just the tip of the iceberg. This family has made hundreds of millions with their corrupt dealings internationally, selling their power to the highest bidder, and you know exactly where to look. So if the Republicans, James Comer and his team, want to get to the truth, you can show them exactly where to go.
Yes,
right?
and we have been righteously peppering their iMessage accounts for the exact things that they need to request in these subpoenas. So even if they don't cite us directly, we are providing the source material. And I just posted on, as a response, Kim, to this space, the article, different posts about Mel that we've made on our X profile. And as just proof that we're over the target, 1 week after our report was released in October of 2022, Mel's law firm's website went offline. That guy has not had his law firm has not had a public website since our report was released. If you go to monlaw.com, MONLAW.com, it says that the website is under construction, and it's been under construction for 14 months. And it's because nobody had connected this. Nobody had connected this guy. Well, they of course knew that Joe was a friend of his, but the laptop showed correspondence and other things that suggested a much closer relationship than we heretofore knew about. And so that's why he's running scared. I mean, which law firm doesn't have, which, multi-member law firm doesn't have a website? I just posted on X it's absolutely hilarious, and it's exactly the behavior that that rats do when they scurry, right? So that's one of the reasons why they want to take us out, and why we're the true underdog in this scenario. Don't just take my word for it. Is what other act could cause a law firm to take down their website? That Mel doesn't want his name in the papers at all.
Yeah, it's under construction. More
Well,
like it's
because there's so much to uncover, isn't there? I mean, that's really the fear that they all have now, and that is why they are attacking you so viciously, why they want to bankrupt you, because you are about to take down this entire house of cards, their entire operation. You know exactly where to look for the money. You know exactly how they've structured their, business structure, what foreign companies they use to run this whole corruption scheme. You are the key to this entire impeachment inquiry, because you have all the answers and you know exactly where they have to look. And if they subpoena the right people, and they have to come to Congress and talk under oath about their dealings with Joe Biden, it's game over, isn't it?
Yes, and they're going to try like crazy. Mel Monzak is to say that he has attorney-client privilege, and so that's why this relationship must be exposed. And I'm appreciative of the bigger platform I'm right now to talk about it, because the more people know Mel Monzak's name, the more pressure is going to be brought to bear on bringing him in and severing that corrupt attorney-client relationship. Because what they do is they hide behind that privilege. It's a good privilege, but not when you're using that to facilitate money laundering. So if they search the FinCEN database for any SARS concerning Mel or his firm, it doesn't have to be Mel specifically, but just Monzak, Mersker, and the firm's name. That will have some hits. And I think that the Republicans so far, of course, we have evidence of felonies. The common retort is, which crime are you wanting to impeach him for? And the Republicans just seem to say, number one, FARA violations, number two, money laundering, and number three, tax fraud. But they don't actually get into the statute verbiage, and that hurts their cause publicly, because it seems like they don't have anything when it's just it's not a messaging thing per se, because they have the data, but they just need to put it in a way that a prosecutor or the public could understand. But
Gary,
like
you don't think
bribery
that's changed
is an impeachable offense
with the California
hold on,
complaint?
somebody's trying to
I
talk
mean,
over
they've
each other.
actually.
Sure.
Garrett, I'm curious what you think. I mean, I look at it as a stalling tactic, but at this point, they don't have much legs to stand on, right? Biden's own, U.S. attorney in California has indicted Hunter. I'm sure you've read the
That's
complaint
not
referencing
true.
CFs.
Biden's attorney didn't indict Hunter. It was the special counsel.
Yeah, correct.
Because Biden's attorney.
I didn't say it was Biden's attorney. I'm just the U.S. attorney in general. So my question is, they're already showing that there's been criminal money laundering and tax acts, and you can point to the Blue Star, backdating their lobbying efforts in regards to Ukraine. I mean, what do you think is the delay on the Republican side? I mean, that alone, a complaint there with the backdating should be enough to make their claims. What do you think? They're waiting for more, or what do you think is going on?
Well, I would just say that the U.S. attorney in Delaware, David Weiss, did try to partner with Martin Estrada, the USA, for the Central District, and he turned him down. And so the special counsel had to impanel the grand jury. And it wasn't just Martin Estrada, Biden's handpicked attorney. It was Matthew Graves, the U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, that's put so many people in the gulag there. He refused to partner with the David Weiss team out of Delaware. And so that's why I think he asked for the special counsels, because they weren't going to get any help from Joe's appointees. I'll answer your question by making one small point as an asterisk. In our current lawsuit with Hunter in federal court, the judge in that case is Hernan Vera, who was appointed by Joe in June, or who was confirmed by the Senate after Joe appointed him 3 separate times. It took him 3 times to get through the Senate. And then Hernan Vera gave $2,000 to Joe in 2020. So we are in a lawsuit, talking about lawfare. We're in a lawsuit where the plaintiff's daddy appointed the judge to the job, and the judge gave $2,000 to the plaintiff's daddy. So we're the underdog 101. We are getting attacked from all sides. So we're probably going to be filing a motion for recusal, because we don't want any potential bias, and we think a reasonable person could question the impartiality of such a judge.
So you're most likely going to go to a verdict. You don't see any type of negotiated settlement with the other side. They're trying to bleed you out.
No, I'll never sign anything that's not the truth, because I would do. Let's put it this way. I told a family member of mine, I can't believe what it's, and Kim can back me up even more because he's lived through it longer. I can't imagine being in a legal fight where I think I've done something wrong. If I truly thought I would do anything wrong, I would talk about it. I would say, you know what, I could have done this better. But guess what? If I were given the same I would do the same thing over 5 to 10 different times. We didn't do anything wrong. All we're doing is publishing data. So I have no regrets. But to piggyback off of your statement, the indictment is damning to a degree. They don't talk about FARA violations and money laundering. But one thing we're going to be doing this week, I have been on the road, guys, for 10 straight days, trying to fill the coffers of our legal defense fund, which is desperately needed. But I am going to be home for this week until Christmas. And so we will be on X here talking constantly about that 56-page indictment and what's unique and what we can, we don't wade into issues where we can't add value. But one thing we can add value in is we published the indictment with all of the names that were redacted by the government, so you know who exactly they're referring to. And the next thing we're going to be doing is going through the indictment and posting the very emails that the indictment cites. It's going to be probably the first time in U.S. history where you can read a public indictment and then look at the very source data that the prosecutors used for the charge. So multiple times they say, Hunter tried to deduct pimps and hookers as business expenses. Well, don't take the prosecutor's word for it. We'll show you in BidenLaptopEmails.com where he tried to do that. And I think that's especially damning. And again, none of the people who have derided us, Kim, and we are getting lambasted from all angles. None of the people who have derided us have said that we falsified anything, right? We don't forge metadata. None of this is fake, and I think that makes it so that makes the frivolous lawsuits all the more disgusting. That we haven't engaged in any contemptible behavior. We haven't accused Hunter of anything he didn't do. We're not stretching the truth. In fact, we were conservative in our report. If you look at our X profile right now and follow the e-reader to go read our report, bidenreport.com, you'll see that for each and every violation of law, we have at least 2 examples. We have at least 2 pieces of corroborating evidence. The reason why we did that is because we don't want the Bidens to have any plausible deniability and say, you know what, Marco Polo, you're reading this wrong. You're reading this situation wrong. It's not what you make it out to be. And so we not only did that, but we had a duty to contact each and every person involved in this laptop before publication. I personally, Garrett Ziegler, reached out to every business partner, every hooker, every drug dealer that was on this laptop and asked them for another alternative explanation of the interaction. That is very important. As a writer, you have a moral obligation to do that. And so that's why that 2 pieces of corroborating evidence. I've been doing this. This has been, to use writer verbiage, Kim, this has been like my beat for 2 years. I focused on little else. Marco Polo is involved in other smaller projects. But, that's another reason why they're going after us with lawfare, is that we know the entire family social structure because yeah.
Just imagine for a moment you are Hunter Biden and you have like all these hookers and drug dealers and people calling you, telling you, hey, this guy Garrett Ziegler called me and wanted to ask me about our interaction.
Yes.
Like, can you imagine how mad this guy is?
The biggest bombshell had to be sending it to all his classmates at Archmere, which is where we went to high school.
That's true. So what we do, that made it in the New York Post review. Miranda Devine, who wrote a very good book on this matter called Laptop from Hell. I urge you all to go read that book. Very well written. Miranda's a better writer than I am. But we're sort of, we're investigators. So we dug deeply into the data, and our report, her book and our report are a different breed, but she did a very good job. And one thing that she did in her review of our report, it's a short review, but nevertheless, she talks about that. What we've done is the individual emails, it's not just that we have a PDF of the emails, right? Because if you just have a PDF of an email interaction, you cannot see the header data, you can't see the other metadata, and that is critical to any forensic examiner. So what we do is we open up these individual emails, the EML files, and you can then respond. So what I did was I looked at a 1988 Archmere Academy High School reunion reminder. And then we responded to that from our email address, marcopolousa@protonmail.com, with a copy of our report. In fact, the exact phrase I'll use, I'll search it here real quick in my email. Here it is. It is funny.
Yeah. While you do that, let me just remind everyone here in the room what the purpose of the space is. Garrett Ziegler and his organization Marco Polo has made the impeachment inquiry against Joe Biden possible with their detailed work on the Hunter Biden laptop, and making available to the public and to Congress all the details of the criminal activities in the Biden crime family. And now he's being attacked by the Bidens, Joe Biden and his henchmen, to try and silence him with lawfare. And that's why we're here. We're trying to raise money for Marco Polo so that they can defend themselves in those cases. Those will be cases that will be dragging out for years, potentially, that are designed to try and bankrupt Garrett and his organization. And I vouched here today that any penny that you guys are donating, I will double. So if you put in $1, that's worth $2, and it's really going to help Garrett and his team. He's the spearhead of the movement in the United States to fight against corruption, to take America back from these corrupt politicians that are taking money from big pharma, from the military industrial complex, from all these criminals that are not really working for the American people, but to fill their own pockets, line their own pockets. And Garrett has been doing such an amazing job. So please, if you have a chance, there's a tweet on the top in the nest with the links where you can donate either dollars or crypto. And like I said, any donation that you guys make to help Garrett out I'm going to double that.
That is incredibly
thank
generous,
you.
Kim. I have
Yes,
to say.
thank you so much. And they're relying on people like you. And it's not just your funds, Kim, is your organizing power. They're relying and they're praying that people like you don't do these sorts of things. They want us out in the wilderness with no backup, right? So you just hosting this space is enough, and doubling it is very generous, and it's going to allow us to go into 2024 and make it through 2024. Just to give you a figure, our nonprofit's entire budget for 2022 was $195,000. But we have already spent over $180,000 on attorneys this year. So we are, by the end of 2023, going to be spending more than our entire budget on lawyers. And that's why we need more help, is that's their goal all along. We're a very small group, and they know that to defend. And by the way, it's not lost on us that this is a very corrupt feature of American life. You mentioned that I love the Constitution. I do. I think it's the greatest document ever written. But nevertheless, we are not naive about the true problems with our regime, with our system. It shouldn't take this much money to fight to fight a frivolous lawsuit, and that has to be changed in the long term. So the short term is definitely needed, which is defend ourselves. But in the long term solution is that loser pays. We have to go to that system, and these frivolous suits will tamper down. They won't stop entirely, but they will tamper out if we change that system. I think that has to, because if I'm a donor, right, I don't want to give it an organization that doesn't realize that. We realize that the system is broken, but in the immediate, we don't want to be a victim of that broken system. So that's why we're having these fundraising calls, and to discuss our work that's out for free. Right? It'd be one thing, I think, if we charged. It's like what WikiLeaks did. It'd be one thing if we charged a per search fee on our email site. But we're the only. There's many people who have copies of this hard drive, Kim. But we really did this in a deliberate, organized fashion. We created a nonprofit. We hired people that were only in it for the right reasons. We're low ego. There's no infighting. There's no drama, and we've been at it now for over 2 years. Our incorporation was in July of 21, so we're now nearly 30 months in, and we've gotten the attention and of the most powerful man in the Western world.
And this is
So
why
we need all the backup.
this is why Garrett, the organization has been targeted specifically out of all the people who've handled the laptop. And by the way, we can't go without crediting John Paul Mac Isaac, the laptop repair shop owner who had the courage to get this information out in the first place. We wouldn't have it either. And he's been harassed and harangued and is being sued as well. So they know that these tactics they use, they've got these unlimited resources because they're dealing with corrupt, who knows, untold millions. I mean, you also have to realize this laptop information, this is just that was on those laptops. Who knows what other there might be other troves of information or communications channels that have never been disclosed or uncovered so far. Not to mention, if they're operating out in the open with all the money laundering to the point of generating hundreds of suspicious activity reports, who knows how much offshore, totally concealed types of money transfers have been made that are maybe on orders of magnitude larger than what we've seen. I can't believe that they're going to sell out this entire country for a few shekels in the scheme of things, $1 million here and $1 million there. That's just a fun Hunter Biden's lascivious, degenerate lifestyle, because he blows through money like he blows through crack, frankly. But I think he's not a fool to leave himself completely bereft. There have to be offshore accounts and all sorts of, who knows, whatever assets they've managed to ply out of whoever it was.
Well, Tyler, just to go off that point and why it's essential that we fight this lawfare, not just settle and agree to something that's not true.
Oh, hell no.
We were the first group in the world through an Asian-based whistleblower to reveal that the guy who paid Hunter's taxes and who's paying his living expenses right now, Kevin Morris, now owns 10% of the Chinese equity fund from Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden sold to Kevin Morris that 10% share of BHR, and BHR was founded by the Bank of China and other state council affiliated funds, and so it stands to reason that Kevin Morris is not giving this money through the generosity of his heart. There's nothing in his background that suggests that he's a generous man. So those millions are coming with strings attached. And our job, and the reason why Morris specifically wants to destroy us, is because we're going to be asking those questions until we find out what it is. What is Morris getting for those millions of dollars that he's given the first son? The idea that they're just friends is preposterous. In fact, the judge, I don't know if anybody knows this on this space, Kim, but I was the witness for the mother of Hunter Biden's child in Arkansas in May of this year. And one of the things that came up in the hearing I was actually in a courtroom with Hunter in May, is the judge questioned these payments from Kevin Morris. She said, I've never, if my friend gives me money in the millions, they're usually going to want something for it. And this is borne out by the recent IRS whistleblower documents that were released by Jason Smith and his committee, saying that Hunter Biden's taxes posed considerable risk politically for Joe. So we have Kevin Morris on an email now released by the U.S. Congress saying that the payment of these taxes is critical because it's a risk. It's a political risk. So again,
and wasn't your involvement likely the reason why Hunter Biden in the end settled the case and paid money to that mother?
I don't know. I always try to be conservative. I can't claim. I do know that the mother is a nice woman and not like the Bidens and doesn't want it. She's not so litigious. And so it was a multitude of factors. I think that they wanted to not go to, they didn't want to go to trial because I was going to be called to the stand, and they were
Exactly right. I mean, but you are so knowledgeable about everything Hunter Biden that they were so scared of you becoming a witness in this case that they ended up settling it. And that would have really made Hunter so angry because he didn't want to settle this. He was actually quite aggressively trying to defend himself in that case until you came along and he realized that this is going to be destructive for him if he continues.
One of the crazy things is that Garrett has been able to track Kevin Morris's private jet. So, here's Hunter Biden taking a private jet into his court case to basically play or cry poor mouth that he can't afford or wants to have the payments reduced to support his daughter, essentially. So, I mean, it's just
so the president's son.
Just to make clear for everyone who's here, this is the kind of guy Hunter Biden is. He has a daughter and doesn't want to pay child support and arrives at the hearing in a private jet and tells the judge, I don't have the money to pay this. I mean, you can't make this shit up. How fucking sick
it really is.
that?
And one of the things that I think the impact, this is Garrett and Marco Polo are the most under-recognized yet consequential, influential group right now that no one wants to admit they've seen the report, they read the report, because their strategy, I guarantee you, all along, as they've played on every tragedy in their lives, the Bidens, the wife Nelia's death, and Naomi when in 1972, Joe used that for decades for sympathy, and then Beau's death, which was terrible and tragic, but was also has been exploited, and they were going to use this. I've been battling drug addiction all along, and they wanted to use that. And I think that in the absence of this report and Garrett and the group's work, the public would have probably largely, even on the Republican necessarily or non propaganda media side would have swallowed that and would have taken it in wholesale, because people generally want to have sympathy for someone who's trying to straighten out their life. And I don't, you
Very
can't
good
read this
point.
report
Very
and
good
think
point
this
that
man could be, if for 1 second, anything but disingenuous
yes,
about what he's.
the main very good point. The main thesis from his statement is that these people are making fun of a drug addict. That is not what we're doing. The business related crime section of our report is the longest and it's the most important. We have no interest in making fun of a drug addict for that alone. What we are pointing out is the utter hypocrisy of that drug addict, also at the very same time collecting $1 million a year from a corrupt Ukrainian gas company. So he can't have it both ways. If he is saying that it was just because of the drugs that I acted this way, how can you then explain the millions in foreign cash that was coming into your bank account? And this is not just,
And they would rather have it be about his degeneracy than about the true corruption at the core.
yes.
But I think that's a mistake that's been messaging on independent sources and the right. I mean, Hunter Biden isn't the story. He was the bagman. He was the avatar. He was the empty suit. He was forced to do this as his father's bidding. This was Joe Biden running the operation. You don't sit on Burisma next to Coffer Black, right, the former head of CIA counterterrorism, unless your father's there. And we know now with Bubiansky, with the Blackberries, etc. I think the issue is we focus too much on Hunter when Hunter is he's just, like I said, an avatar his father used to enrich his family. We have the text to his sister. Good luck giving dad half of what you want, 10% for the big guy, et cetera, et cetera. So I think focusing on Hunter, when the drug issue gets brought up, we need to say, no, this is his father. His father was engaged in an ongoing criminal enterprise. And he was the one who forced his brother to do this because his other son, who was supposed to do it, in my opinion, passed away. But
yeah,
that's
it's
just
going
me.
after the capos instead of the
Hey,
Don.
if I could jump in real quick. First of all, I want to say great space, Kim. This is the highest and best use of X, when you not just educate people with the truth and the news, but when you call to action. Otherwise, what's the point of people gathering together? That's the real point of a town hall or a town square. So I hope everyone is going to chip in and help Garrett and his team. Kind of piggybacking on what you just said, Prodigal, and what Tyler has alluded to, and you as well, Kim, is it's not just about Hunter Biden that they're trying to prevent this from happening. It's everyone that is complicit, which leads me to my question. Back when Biden said to a journalist, when he was bragging about, you've got 6 hours. If the prosecutor isn't fired, you won't get the money. The journalist then just said, well, you aren't the president. And he says, call him. I mean, that is a lot of confidence that Obama knew exactly what was going on. And so my question is, and a lot of people have this question, is what was the role of Obama? It was his administration. And how could he not be complicit or be knowledgeable of this? We have a lot of the same players in this current administration. And was the big guy really Biden? Some people think that the big guy might even be Obama. So I'm just curious if you have any
Well, I mean,
light to shed on that.
the fact is that this entire Democratic Party leadership is basically in cahoots with each other. The Clinton Foundation, the Obama Foundation, and what Hunter and Joe Biden did here together with their corruption scheme, that's all connected. They've all been working together, helping each other out to make as much money as possible out of their time and power. And that hasn't stopped. Even though it's Biden's turn now, the Clintons and the Obamas are still cashing in on that. So they're helping each other. They're washing each other's hands, in corruption.
Why not subpoena some more of and just my final point is why are they not going to subpoena Obama, for instance? If this was, the shoe was on the other foot, everybody in President Trump's whole circle, family, administration, has been largely, gotten in the crossfire somehow. So thank you.
Yeah, and the height of hypocrisy is really that Democrats are now defending Hunter Biden refusing the subpoena, to testify under oath to this committee, while at the same time they were demanding that Trump's entire family, all his kids, all his campaign partners, anyone who was involved in, working with him throughout his campaign and throughout his presidency should be questioned and answer questions under oath. It's a complete hypocrisy. Actually, this entire book that Gareth Siegler has released is just a mountain of hypocrisy and crime. I mean, just remember how Biden's efforts led to thousands of young Americans being locked up, even for minor drug use. And his own son is sitting there taking videos of himself consuming mountains of drugs, and no one is even charging him. I mean, how ridiculous is this? What a kind of world are we living in, where Joe Biden created the toughest enforcement against even minor drug use, and here's his son doing this on his laptop hundreds of times over and over again, even filming the drugs on the table, mountains of drugs, but this guy hasn't been charged at all, and that's one
That's a
of
phenomenal point.
hundreds. It's just one of hundreds of examples of hypocrisy. The refusal of Hunter Biden to give testimony under oath is just one example. The drug use is another example, and the list goes on and on and on. So we really need to help Gareth and Marco Polo here to basically turn their current defense position against the Bidens who want to bankrupt him into an offensive position where he can go out and fight not only back in court, but be the voice that leads this change, that fights this corruption in America. That's what the role of Marco Polo has been, and they've been doing an excellent job. And I personally really see Gareth as the American Julian Assange. The work that he has been doing is incredible. The amount of detail that has been put into this data and the booklet that they've created, and the 600 plus pages. I mean, it's just a level of detail and perfection that I've only seen with WikiLeaks. I've never seen it from anyone else, and that's why I'm personally helping Gareth, just like I helped WikiLeaks. A lot of you don't know this. The case against me and the destruction of my business was in great part because I was the biggest donor to WikiLeaks. I've given them hundreds of thousands of dollars long before most people even knew what WikiLeaks was. And the same with Gareth. I've been helping him, and I will continue to help him because people like him are our only hope that we have, that we can change this corrupt system that we are all living under, that is going to destroy humanity. This will lead to, a major global war, because all these people care about is themselves, to cover up their crimes, to, make sure that they will never be held accountable, and they will go to war in order to achieve that.
Without diminishing in the slightest Julian Assange's immense contributions and the sacrifice that he has made and continues to make, I would note that Julian did so. He released, for example, information about the United States government from a foreign jurisdiction. Garrett and the team, they're doing this within the United States, where they, could see the FBI at their door any day, any minute, and are directly exposed to a truly corrupt totalitarian regime. So, as I'd said at the beginning, I think courage is the key ingredient here. And I gotta say, Garrett, I mean, I served in the Army Infantry. I've met a lot of brave guys, but he is probably one of the most courageous people I've ever met and had the privilege to work with. And I just real quick, there's another whistleblower that I noticed is in the in this spaces, and he is the Uranium One whistleblower, and he was actually working within the FBI organization. And I don't know if you want to bring him on for a couple minutes. It's Nate Kane, and he's he had his story is astonishing. He took on Hillary Clinton's corruption, and when Comey was trying to basically paper over it in 2016, and he saw from the inside the amount of corruption, and just was shocked that they were going to try to cover it up rather than pursue prosecutions. and unfortunately that's
hmm
Please raise
oh
your
yeah,
hand so I
Nate,
can bring them up.
and talking about it is not, it is not just me. That's why it's not the Garrett Ziegler Research Group. There's a team behind me. I want to make a shout out to a listener here, also Kenakoa. He created this amazing side by side video in the theme of hypocrisy of Joe on the Senate floor in 1991 holding up a quarter and saying, if you have a piece of crack cocaine the size of this quarter, you go to jail for 5 years, no probation, no nothing. And then on the other side of the video, he has Hunter receiving a foot job while smoking crack cocaine. And so what this means is I can't do it all. I am just the leader of the group. This would not be possible.
It's even worse. Hunter is consuming fucking cocaine in the White House, gets caught, and no one does anything about it. I mean, how ridiculous. The most secure building in the world, and they can't find the guy who used the cocaine in the White House. I mean, it's just like, if it wasn't so criminal and so crazy and corrupt, it's almost
it
like
really
a
is.
comedy.
God help
You
them,
know,
they spent anthrax.
they really think they can just like Americans are completely stupid, and they can just continuously get away with the stuff. The only reason why Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and the entire RICO conspiracy of Biden family members and their money laundering partners are not in jail is because Joe Biden appointed people in the DOJ and in the FBI that are covering for them. You know, that's the peak of criminal behavior, that the agencies that are supposed to go after people that are committing these kinds of crimes are backing what the Bidens have been doing, what the Clintons have been doing. They are all basically just shields
Obstructing
for their
justice is exactly
criminality.
what they're doing.
I mean, Kim, the one thing I think, and that's why, like, I try to go back to what people deserve to know right now is the places where they've done business, right, are now places where we're involved with geopolitical messes, right? You look at Ukraine. If we know this compromising material exists, and this is just a portion of it, how much do you think Zelensky in Ukraine has? The American people deserve to know if we're being blackmailed based on the Biden family's corruption into providing aid and engaging in conflicts. Like, I understand the drugs and everything else is salacious, but the American public, for how this affects you today, is we don't know if our president's compromised. What we do know is he said he never talked about business. Then he said they did talk about business. Then pictures came up, and now Hunter's at the top of Capitol Hill saying, well, he wasn't financially involved. And that's not including Blackberries, emails, everything Marco Polo has done. So right now, regardless of what's happened in the past, and like Kim is saying, there's clearly an ongoing criminal conspiracy because this touches upon numerous bureaucrats, numerous diplomats, etc. And if we don't get answers to this, Ukraine, it's been a year. We've sent, what, 80 billion? This is stuff, you look at the energy policy, how we've decimated our coal and other industries while we've empowered China with the EV and green energy push. We need to know if our president is being blackmailed and basically extracting American wealth and equipment and supplies abroad.
What even worse, risking a nuclear war against a nuclear power through this entire U.S. proxy war in Ukraine. I mean, there's a reason why Donald Trump reached out to Zelensky saying, hey, can you help us investigate what happened around Burisma? Like, can you provide us with the information what the Bidens did over there, which then turned into an impeachment inquiry. And if you look at that impeachment inquiry compared to what's going on now, like, this is a mouse versus
a fun fact,
evidence of criminal behavior.
Zelensky's in the Panama Papers. So this guy's dirty. We know he's dirty, right? Zelensky's all over the Panama Papers. So this is where your money is going to, and while we're marching to World War III, and we don't know. Well, I know the guy's corrupt. He's a criminal, in my opinion.
Yeah, so let me just remind everyone why we are doing this space. Garrett Ziegler and his organization, Marco Polo, and his team have done an excellent job, working with the Hunter Biden laptop data, making it, into a big database, allowing everyone to understand the evidence that it contains, and also providing basically all the background work that allowed the impeachment inquiry is now going on against Joe Biden. Without him and his work and his team, none of this would have been possible. And he is now under attack by Joe Biden and his henchmen. They're trying to silence him. They're trying to bankrupt him with lawfare. They have, sued him and his organization. They're trying to get his organization basically delisted and qualified as something that isn't a charity. There's so many efforts now by the Bidens to silence this guy, the front line fighter against corruption. This is what criminals do. This is what the mafia did in Italy. They killed the prosecutors. This is what crime families did in the United States. They go after the people who are investigating them, and this is what the Biden family does against Garrett and the Marco Polo team, trying to silence them because they're pointing out the obvious crimes and corruption by the Biden family, and they want that to stop because it's not just the Bidens that are implicated here. It's their money laundering partners. It's their network within the Democratic Party that is protecting them. It's their network of FBI leadership, DOJ leadership that is covering for them. There is so much at stake here, and that's why they are attacking Garrett and his organization to try and silence him, because he is right at the spear tip of this entire quest, this impeachment inquiry against Joe Biden. And you need to help him. Like, if you want things to change in the United States, if you want to fight against this corruption and make sure that there is a future for America without corrupt politicians, then you need to help him now, because this is a fight that you cannot afford to lose. If you want to change things, please look in the nest. There's a tweet up on top where you can donate money for their defense fund, and you can help them with either cash or crypto. And I've announced from the outset of the space that I'm going to double any donation that they are going to get from you guys today. So if you give them $1, you're actually giving them $2.
One thing that I've detected that you alluded to, Kim, is we don't have a political party that we're dealing with in the Democrats. We have a crime syndicate that is dressed up as a party, and that's how they've operated, and that's what they are. And the sooner people realize that that's what it is, everything makes much more sense. And Nate Kane, I think you let him in as a speaker. I think he has some really just unbelievable what they put him through. Anybody who stands up against this crime syndicate, this set of thugs, you really take your life in your hands. Which, and I mean that literally. I mean, if, Seth Rich, for example, but maybe Nate, if you wanted to just jump in for a minute and talk about.
Sure. Yeah, I just want to, basically confirm, what Tyler's saying, and, what Garrett has done in putting himself out here like this from within the United States. That is something that takes incredible courage, and the amount of lawfare that they can bring against you. I mean, I was a protected whistleblower under the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act, and it still cost me $198,000 in legal fees, to defend myself. Thank God it was the donation of a woman that that basically covered my legal fees, who didn't know me from Adam. Otherwise, I might not be here. And the fact is that I now, in retrospect, I look at what Edward Snowden did in terms of exposing, the corruption, of programs like PRISM and things like that, as the right thing. The problem he made was he should have done it within our own country, but I understand why he was afraid to, because They absolutely
Well, the truth
have
is he
weaponized.
tried, Nate. He absolutely tried to do it within the United States, but
Yeah.
he got nowhere, so he had
Well,
no choice.
yeah, and I understand that now. You know, when I first saw that, you know, I bought into, you know, what you know, several of the agencies and some of I was working for, you know, were saying. But I'm realizing now, when you look at, like, say, Section 702 of FISA and how it's being abused just nonstop against the American people, and not a single FBI agent goes to jail. It's unbelievable that we're, you know, that our Congress, our current Congress right now, just voted to fund the NDAA with that section of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which is never supposed to be used on Americans. They just funded that again. So this kind of stuff, this kind of corruption that's going on, what's particularly important about the work that Garrett and his team have done is that it's the level of documentation that they've gone to. Listen, you know, I'm running a campaign right now. Money for me is extremely tight, but even I just made a donation. And I hope that encourages some of you that are listening in this audience to please make a donation to this group. The work that they are doing is so critically important, because unlike the work that the documents that I brought out, which were all classified, and unfortunately I could never make those public, I had to take them through proper channels to get them to the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, which eventually those documents got buried in a black hole in those committees. These documents, they are all public and they are legally public, but it is such a massive trove of, you know, stuff. And I've known a number of people that have worked on this or had supposedly been working on this, but the facts remain that the Marco Polo group has actually produced something. They've actually produced something that is usable in court and that is usable by Congress, and that any American can get on there and see. And that's incredibly important. So, Garrett, I want to thank you for that. And, you know, and I appreciate the work that you did with me on election integrity stuff. It was a while back, but God bless you for the work that you're doing. And I'll shut up now because I want to hear more from you.
Well, that was extremely kind, and um, we've only gone through a very small percentage of what you went through. You were raided, illegally raided. People ask me quite a lot, you know, am I afraid of getting knocked by the Bidens? The only thing I'm afraid of in the world is my wife and kids being scared. So you went through that. The
I know
raids.
that.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
your family. That is the most important thing to you. You know, I don't care what they did to me. It's what they did to my kids. It's what they did to my wife. It's what they put my family through, my friends through, you know, close associates through. That's what's despicable more than anything. So I totally understand that.
Well,
Yeah,
it's a
let me remind everyone again that without Garrett and his team, there would now not be an impeachment inquiry against Joe Biden. It is his work, his excellent work, the data that they have put together, how they have connected all the dots. Basically, picture this scene in a crime movie where the detective puts up all the photos of all the subjects on the wall and connects all the dots and creates this big picture wall of the entire crime syndicate that the Biden family is, together with their top dogs at the Democratic Party that are covering for them and benefiting as well. This is the work that Gareth has done, like a detective, who didn't care about what's going to happen to him and his family. He just wanted to do the right thing for the country he loves, for the Constitution that he wants to protect, and he's in it for all the right reasons. And now they're trying to silence him. They're trying to bankrupt him with frivolous lawsuit, with lawfare against him and his organization. And we need to stand up against that. We need to protect him. It is our duty, if we want to have a world without corruption, without these people, trampling all over us and not working working for the people, but rather for a handful of billionaire corporations. This is the time where you can, chip in and help Garrett and his organization, because he is under a lot of pressure. They're trying to bankrupt him. He's done all the work that made this impeachment inquiry possible. So if you care about that, please, any amount helps. And like I said, I'm going to double whatever you guys are going to donate today.
It's so kind. And one thing that us standing together and locking arms, even digitally, is it puts them on notice that if we get raided, and this is what I think Nate would have loved, is before he got raided, they know how much of a backlash this is going to be. So this is a righteous warning to any Fed who would corruptly raid me or anybody in Marco Polo, that they are not just violating my constitutional rights and our publishing rights. There's an army of people, and we don't threaten violence. We speak the truth, which is we're not going to let this down. They're going to have a redress of grievances like they haven't seen before. And I think that actually matters.
The Bidens are not going to stop you with their attempts to silence
Yes.
you. If anything, it makes you and me and everyone who's been working with you, who knows your integrity, who knows your honesty and how good of a person you are, fight even harder. We are going to make sure that you have what it takes to defend yourself. So make no mistake. I know Hunter Biden is going to listen to this. You're not going to succeed silencing Garrett and his people. If anything, you're going to make him stronger. You're going to give him more resources, and it's only going to get more difficult for you. So this is my message to the Bidens: leave Garrett alone, or you're going to experience the full wrath of Americans and people around the world who are defending the truth tellers like Garrett.
Well, if you were here in my home office, you'd see I have a dumb, happy smile on my face, because that really is what they need to hear, because they look at us, rightfully so, as the underdog. I'm under 30, got a couple of small children, and they think of me as a weak antelope that they can pick off. But if they know that there's another army behind us, it will change their calculus. And that's so critical, just as much as funds. Just as much as funds is they know that they're, to use some French here, it is going to be a huge shitstorm that descends upon them if they, and this is not a threat, it's an absolute promise and a fact that we're not going anywhere. And I just wish, my only regret is that other people who've gotten railroaded, like Nate and others, had that army behind them. And that's why, Kim, you're rare amongst all the millionaires in the world, people who have global connections and who've built huge companies. You're one of the only people to do this sort of thing. People with money are so risk averse, and they're so worried about pissing people off. It says a lot about you. I mean, I can't imagine all the stuff they put you through, and that you've been landlocked on a certain island for so many years, and yet you're still are willing to stick your neck out. It's special, and it's providential that we've linked up. And we've linked up because we both know how this family is. Think about it. Joe's friend, the assistant U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia, made a simple civil copyright case, a criminal case, and raided you and your family. So when I was talking about, afraid for my wife and kids, and how that's really my concern right now, it's not me. It's whatever they do to my wife and kids. They did that to you with Joe's direct oversight. I mentioned earlier in this space an article that appeared in Politico this week, and it was a sob story about how Joey is so worried about his son. And he, by the way, people talk about Hunter like he's a 22-year-old college sophomore who made a mistake. This guy is 53. Hunter turns 54 in February, and everybody treats him like a little baby girl, and how Joe was so worried about him. But the thing I want to point out is that guy, or that article, there was a quote in there from Chris Dodd, who, as Kim knows well, was the head of the Motion Picture Association of America. And the MPAA wanted the SOPA, Stop Online Piracy Act, to be passed, and Obama couldn't get it done. And so they threw Kim to the wolves as a plan B, basically a scalp, illegally raided him as a way to assuage Hollywood directors that they were doing something about so-called fake piracy. So and Joe oversaw that entire operation. There was
Well,
basically an
you're
Irish
mentioning-
mafia.
Yeah, since you're mentioning my case, let me just enlighten some of the people here what Joe Biden has done.
And it's still ongoing.
Yeah, Joe Biden has basically appointed his own lawyer, who was his lawyer when he was still a senator, to the Department of Justice, and made him a U.S. attorney, through his connections. And this guy, his lawyer, was a lobbyist for the Business Software Association, so a copyright lobbyist, and he was lobbying right until up to his appointment to the DOJ. And he actually legally required a White House waiver to be allowed to even be a U.S. attorney, because you cannot be a lobbyist for 2 years before you can take any kind of appointment in the government, the so-called prevention of this revolving door from lobbyists to government officials. And they just completely ignored that requirement, put him into the DOJ, and he was then running this case against me, which is really just a civil copyright case. They turned it into a criminal conspiracy case, a RICO charge, and they want to put me in jail for 186 years. And what happened is Joe Biden worked with Chris Dodd, who he himself calls his best friend in life. Chris Dodd, after he left the Senate, became the lobbyist for Hollywood. He became the chairman of the MPAA. And, the Hollywood studios wanted Chris Dodd to deliver results, against copyright infringement, making sure that Hollywood has more and more control over the internet and can shut down websites that they don't like. So that was Chris Dodd's job. And Chris Dodd went to his best friend, Joe Biden, and said, hey, let's do this together. Let's work together. And Biden actually had a meeting at the White House with all the studio heads in the United States, the top leadership of the Hollywood studios. And we know this because we downloaded the White House visitor logs and have a completely clear picture of how this whole case evolved. And then Biden at that meeting made a promise to the Hollywood executives, with Chris Dodd present, that he's going to, help with their cause against copyright infringement, and that he's going to take down Mega Upload. Mega Upload was raised in those meetings, and then shortly after, the raid happened in New Zealand, an unprecedented activity with like 72 cops. Some of them military units with silenced assault rifles, arriving in 2 helicopters, trucks with police and attack dogs in a copyright case. They used, the spy apparatus of the NSA and the GCSB to spy on me illegally. Fortunately, I have a data security background. I used to help Fortune 500 companies protect themselves against spies. So when they spied on me, I realized that after the raid, and I made a case about that. And it turned out that the government had to admit that they did that illegally. The Prime Minister of New Zealand had to apologize, red-faced, for basically having committed this illegal act against me and my family. And this case has been going on for 12 years. I'm a political prisoner in New Zealand for 12 years now, because Biden and his corruption led to basically turning a civil copyright case into the first criminal case of its nature. It's a novel case. It never happened before. It never happened since. The attorney that I mentioned earlier, the former Biden lawyer who he made U.S. attorney, he showed up at the White House a week before the meeting took place with all the studio bosses where they were discussing Mega Upload to brief Joe Biden's chief of staff on the developments of his case against me and Mega Upload. This is how deep the corruption goes. And I'm happy to announce here today that Garrett Siegler and I have been working together for some time now to make sure that my case is going to be an open source case where we're going to be completely transparent about all communications, all documents that were discovered. Every piece of evidence in my case is going to be available to the public. Gareth and his Marco Polo team are going to write a similar report as they have done with the Hunter Biden laptop. And we're going to show to the entire world the level of corruption that the Biden family is involved in and what they have done to me and my family, destroying my multi-billion-dollar business with the help of the corrupt New Zealand government, to do these kinds of things. And I'm very happy that I have this partnership and friendship with Gareth, because this will be the first case of its kind, a criminal RICO case that is going to be completely transparent, where every piece of evidence is going to be available to the public. Every filing that has ever been made, every finding by any court that has ever been made will be available to a huge crowdsourcing force, utilizing the internet to bring all of you into my case and allow you to participate. And one other important fact, the judge who the DOJ attorney, who was Biden's lawyer, selected for this case was a judge who worked for Disney. He was a copyright lawyer for Disney. He worked for Disney for many, many years. It was his biggest client, and his name is O'Grady. And we discovered through our investigations that he was a shareholder of Disney while he was running the case against me. And he is the guy who ex parte destroyed my entire business, who signed up all of these documents that allowed them to basically destroy my business without any due process. And this guy was a shareholder of Disney and was a Disney lawyer and selected by the lawyer that Joe Biden put into the DOJ to bring this case against me for his Hollywood donors. So this entire story is still just in the early stages. When we release everything that we have in the report that I'm working on with Gareth, it's going to blow your mind. I mean, the Hunter Biden laptop is already a pretty big story. But when you see how Joe Biden has used his power and abused his power to take down a company that was based in Hong Kong, had no office in the United States, and has utilized the New Zealand government as their henchmen, partners, to destroy me. When you see what they have done, it will absolutely blow your mind. And that's the next big thing that's coming from Gareth. So I hope you don't mind that I announce that now.
Oh, I love it. And it gives us an opportunity to state that our memories are long. These are injustices. These are sins that our duty is to make them right. So the idea that, oh, this happened in 2011, ergo, we're going to move on. Absolutely not. That is what Hunter and Joe have always underestimated about our small group and you, Kim, is we have long memories. We are not going to let this go. There are permanent consequences to their criminality. For example, the effects mentally on that vicious raid they conducted, people around you are still feeling the effects of that. So why would we ever move on? Why would we ever move on about how Joe was overseeing a global FARA violating operating? For example, the war in Ukraine right now, we will never be able to calculate all of the third and fourth order consequences. What's going on right now will affect family trees for the next 1,000 years. It'll induce trauma on behalf of all the little kids who were hit with bombs and buildings. And so what I'm trying to say is we have long memories, and just because something happened a decade ago isn't going to make Marco Polo lose interest on it. And I think that they have to realize that. Because why? Because it'll induce anxiety in their hearts, because they know that we're not going to let up. We're going to be like a dog on a piece of meat, and we can't let up. And because we've been disappointed in so many groups in the movement, right, who've sort of tapered off and lost their zeal for righteous retribution. By righteous retribution, I mean it is right to have indignation at this conduct. It is right to have indignation at the hypocrisy of some black guy in Detroit sitting in the federal pen right now because he had a dime bag when the president's son bragged about it and took videos with a prostitute and with pimps, that same dime bag. So this is not anger. We're not crazies. We said right after the lawsuit with Morris that whichever brick goes through Morris's house will be from their side. They're wanting they're wanting the public to think that some brick is going to go through their window, when in fact they're probably going to stage the brick going through their window like that person did in House of Cards, right? To throw them off the scent, to think that our side is the one that's going to resort to violence. We've never called for that, and I just want to reiterate that in this space is that we're not going to forget. We're not going to give them an easy win. An easy win would be one of us, doing something violent, and then they get to say, and then they get to shut our group down, and then we all get raided. So we're not calling for that. And I want to have that qualifier out there when I say that our memories are long. Another thing that I think Kim will be interested in is we've also transcribed the adult journal that Joe's daughter wrote at age 39. A lot of people want to say that it was something she wrote as a child. No, this was when Ashley was 39 years old. She was an adult, and we posted that journal on our website, the transcribed version. And I would urge everyone to go to our site. You can also go to showerswithjoe.com and see this journal. It is absolutely nuts. You see what his own daughter said about him. So if his own daughter says that he's taking inappropriate showers with her, and that could be the reason for her sexual trauma, I mean, this is the type of people we're dealing with. So if you think that I'm being too hard on these folks,
well, let me tell you what kind of people we're dealing with. We're dealing with a monster that has no empathy at all, that is causing hundreds of thousands of people to die in this U.S. proxy war in Ukraine, and is against any peace negotiations. This case, this conflict in Ukraine could have been settled long ago when Ukraine and Russia actually, had a result after months of negotiations where they could have signed a peace agreement. And then there's Joe Biden sending his lapdog Boris Johnson to Ukraine to undermine the peace process and to tell the Ukrainians, you need to fight. You can't settle this with Russia. And ever since then, over 500,000 Ukrainians have died. That is the kind of Joe Biden we're talking about here. He doesn't care about hundreds of thousands of people dying because of his corrupt actions.
One of the things is I think people have they've made the laws so complicated that it's difficult for the average person to sometimes comprehend the extent of illegality and unlawful conduct. But I think what people have a fundamental sense for is when there's injustice, and they can see that what was done to you, Kim, what they would try to do to anyone who runs afoul of them and their schemes is unjust. The way they've corrupted the very system of justice. There is no worse criminal, in my opinion, than a corrupt prosecutor who denies the very possibility of justice. And I think that's where they can throw as much garbage as they want at those who challenge them, or those who they perceive as a threat, or those who are in the way of their interests, but they cannot overcome the essential justice or in their case, the injustice that they're committing against people who are innocent and who are simply just trying to go about their lives. And the deaths of those people is, I mean, it's an injustice that's on an unspeakable scale. So, you know, this is more than just, again, going after mere corruption. It is restoring justice to this country.
Yeah, I thank you for saying that. That's really the big problem. You know, people don't have faith in a justice system that doesn't go after leaders that are enriching themselves, that doesn't even investigate them. You know, when there's clear evidence of criminal activity, like the one that Gareth has shown with his database and with his information that he put together. It's mind-boggling that we are living in a time where the criminals rule and are protected by the agencies that are supposed to hold them to account. And you know, that in itself makes all of this possible. That makes Ukraine possible. That makes war crimes in Israel possible, because when there is no accountability at all and the criminals have free reign to commit their corruption because they know they are protected and they never have to worry about ever facing any kind of court time, that's when they go all in on these corrupt schemes and supporting, you know, international criminals to kill thousands of people, and they don't give a shit. They literally don't give a shit that thousands of people die every day because of their corrupt criminal schemes. And they feel safe doing it because they know none of the people that are supposed to investigate them would ever touch them.
It's institutionalized psychopathology. It really is. I mean, a lot of these people, they have to be psychopaths, and I'm not trying to diagnose them, but their actions speak for themselves. And I would point out, actually, this is interesting. I just noted, I reposted Kim's announcement at a space, and it turns out it's my 5,000th post. For some odd reason, I've never kept track, and I just looked up.
Hey,
so
speaking of 5,000, this is relevant. I want to let everybody know that just in this space alone, in the intervening, um, 100 minutes, we've raised $11,000 already. So thank you so much. And speaking of 5,000, the reason why I brought this up, Tyler, is I want to thank
But
Eugene
you've raised
because
$22,000 then, haven't you?
yes, and I want to thank Eugene because Eugene gave 5,000 alone. So if Eugene is listening in, that's a coincidence with Tyler's number of tweets and then Eugene's gift. It's our duty as a C3, especially in the American system where there are so many grifts, to be very transparent. So if you are even considering giving to us, I want you to go to our website, marcopolo501c3.org, and look at our tax returns, which are available. Look at our IRS letter. Everything is out there. We are completely transparent. The budget, in fact, when you're a nonprofit in the United States, if your budget's less than $200,000, your 990 is not published online. And so we took it a step farther and did that, even though we weren't required to by law. And I think that's very important. And that's what's separating us. Like Kim said, and like Tyler said, we're not, we actually do work hard and we produce something. And one of the reasons why we did the physical copies of the report is it's not censorable. The Microsoft web browser, the Edge internet browser, if you go to our report on that browser, bidenreport.com, you'll see that Microsoft has put up a warning label on our site that said that this site is unsafe. And why is that? Because there is a Microsoft executive named Vinny Staropoli who is friends with Hunter and Kevin Morris, and he is a software exec, and he has went into Microsoft's system and flagged that. And they're committing defamation per se because of the statement that they put on that site that says that our site may steal your financial data, even though hilariously, Kim, there's no place to put your financial data on the page. there's no place for somebody to input their credit card data, and yet they say that it's unsafe. So the reason why we did the physical copies is Joe can't go into each and everybody's house and burn their reports. We've sold over 12,000 of them through word of mouth marketing. We have no established marketing. I think we bought one Twitter ad. We rely on folks like him who have a huge reach to spread the word. And I'm very proud of the physical copies of the report. I know I brought Kim some, and they're good quality. And we went with a family-owned company in Florida. So I just think we have a fiduciary and moral duty as a charity to release our records, to partner with other America First companies, and that printing company that put it together in Florida is just that. And so I want you to know that we are not, giving to, like, our attorneys are all good people. They're ethical. They're in it for the right reasons. They know that these are frivolous suits, because some people, raise money for defense funds, and then you look at the attorneys and you're like, wait, this guy is not going to be fighting till the death for you, and we have that. And I was just out with our attorneys for 3 days in California, because Hunter sued us in the very district that he got indicted in. So 2 weeks ago, Hunter Biden got indicted in the Central District of California for tax charges, and back in September, he sued us in that very district. So we're right in the middle of it, and I think that this is so important. This space is so important because, and I'm so grateful for it, guys, because we have no help. I've been on Fox News a couple of times. I've been on Newsmax, but other than that, the mainstream is so reticent to have me on. And I've sent emails to Jake Tapper, Dan Abrams, all of these hosts to have me on to discuss our dossier, and they will not touch it. Like the Krasenstein brothers, they will not touch this dossier. We've been joking about calling ourselves Voldemort, because we are he who must not be named, and they want to just put ad hominem attacks on us. But once you actually discuss the document we produced, they go silent. And that's not me bragging. That is me saying that your contribution is appreciated, and it's going towards a cause that is legitimate, and we are moving the ball forward.
That's quite simple. If you hate what Joe Biden is doing to America, help Gareth and his team out. They're going to take him down. This impeachment inquiry is going to be a very powerful one, thanks to Gareth and his team. Like, if you want to get back at Biden for what he's done to America, this is your way. You're looking for a way to fight back. This is your way. And I'm pretty sure those 11,000 are going to turn into much more, because people are listening to my spaces, hours, days after they occurred. And, the link is there for everyone to see where to donate and how to do it. And I would be surprised if there isn't a large number of Americans coming together, helping you out for the great work that you have been doing and that you continue to do. So, and this is only the first space, right? We're just starting now. We're just getting started. We're just rolling our sleeves up, and we're telling the Bidens, go fuck yourself. We're coming for you.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Have we just passed the 2-hour mark? Should maybe we throw the floor open to anybody who wants to maybe pose a question or comment?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Whatever Kim wants to do.
Yeah, anyone who wants to ask questions, just raise your hands. We'll open the floor for questions.
Hey, I'll drop down to let somebody else.
Let's start with the two people have already raised.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you for your support.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. Really appreciate what you guys are doing, and really appreciate Kim, you for hosting this space. I just wanted to ask you guys. So Burisma, the Ukrainian energy firm that paid Hunter Biden $11 million for so-called attorney's fees, they dissolved earlier this year. And so I just want to know if there was evidence that could have been recovered from that firm, and now they're dissolved, and that evidence was important or incriminating in any way. Not that, the other stuff on the hard drive is not incriminating, but maybe on a more larger international scale. is there any possibility of recovering any potential data from a Ukrainian firm that is now completely dissolved?
Well, I'd have to know the specifics of the URL and other information about which particular people, because obviously the American um, American firm that helped out Burisma, Boy Schiller Flexner, is still very much alive and well, and kicking and helping Hunter's business partner, Devin Archer, another corrupt figure who stole money from American Indians, Native Americans. Hunter Biden was involved with a firm named Burnham that stole money from Native Americans. It's absolutely verifiable. We write about it for 15 pages, and Boy Schiller Flexner is representing that person. So I don't know which firm particularly you're talking about. We study boys a lot because Boy Schiller Flexner employed Michael Gottlieb, one of the attorneys for Aaron Rich's brother, actually, along with Ruby Freeman. And he was involved with Burisma. Well, he was at the firm that Burisma hired, and then he was also involved in the shakedown in Romania, where Hunter did the very same thing in Romania that he did in Ukraine. He was helping out an oligarch named Gabriel Popoviciu, and they got the American FBI to strong arm the Romanian judiciary, or were trying to do so in clear violation of the FARA. So the short answer to your question is TBD. I'd have to have more source data to figure out whether or not that's recoverable or not.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All right. The next person that raised the hand is Feno.
Thanks again, Kim. Okay, so my question is on page, I think it was 538 of your.
I love this. Okay, I'm turning. This is my style. Okay, I'm going towards it right now.
Oh,
Once he said
528.
that, I get like a big hit of dopamine when somebody
Okay.
asks about specific pages. Okay,
Okay, so
528. I'm there.
528. So 528, you feature an email from
Yes.
James Biden, and the subject is you need to call me now. Just got off the phone with your father. He's meeting with the O exclamation point. Some outrageous acquisition. We have the two biggest days of our business life in front of us. So I just can't help but bring it back to who the big O is. And do you think that I mean, do you hear anything about anyone reaching outside of just the Bidens into the larger administration that was part of this? Obviously, I'm assuming that's Obama that they're referring to.
That is Obama. We couldn't say that for a fact for about a year. And then we looked at all news reports surrounding that weekend, the first weekend in October of 2017. And sure enough, we found Joe sitting courtside with Obama and Prince Harry in Canada at the Invictus Games. So they were meeting the very day. So the backstory is Joey calls his brother Jimmy, who, by the way, is in the Hunter Biden indictment known as Business Associate 3. We named everybody except person number 5, which we couldn't, but there were like 20 people. Jimmy is Business Associate 3. So what you have is Joe meeting with Obama and then calls Jimmy to back brief him. And he doesn't want to put it in an email. That's why he's, Hunter at this time is on crack cocaine. And so his calls back to his family are intermittent and not predictable. And so there's about 15 emails on the Biden laptop of Jimmy saying, please call me back. I've been trying you for 2 days. Please call me back. And again, it's funny and pathetic, but it really is corrupt at the same time. And so I would love to know which outrageous acquisitions Obama and Jimmy Biden were talking about at this time. Again, this is totally verified. Everything from the syntax to the email metadata. Joe's brothers sent this email. Now, the monkey on my shoulder, the devil's advocate, is going to say, why does this matter? Joe was out of office at this time. However, Joe was just a month earlier sitting by Hunter engaging in a shakedown of a Chinese executive at CEFC. And so this points to Joe being involved in these FARA violations. And what they did was they didn't put the source documents in Joe's name. They had another registered agent be the front man, but Joe is directing all of this. He is telling Jim about which acquisitions, which deals that they could profit from. And that's the very next sentence. We have the two biggest days of our business life in front of us. I mean, it's, again, the page 528 is intermittent with a couple of hilarious memes because we're also not sticks in the mud. We have a sense of humor, and we actually put a scene from The Office, well, probably the best comment in the 21st century there, about how Michael is giving conflicting instructions. He's telling Hunter, or Jimmy is telling Hunter to be calm, but he's also putting 50 exclamation points and talking about how Barack Obama is giving him business intel. And you can only imagine which acquisitions they're going to be they're talking about here. He was with Obama at that time. So I'll just read real quick to answer your whole question. I'm going to read real quick the 3 sentences that are on this page. One of the most this is again for anybody following along, it's on page 528. One of the most well-known and pathetic emails from the Biden laptop was a ridiculous 120-word missive from Hunter's uncle Jimmy, which would be hilarious if it were not so incriminating. Akin to Michael Scott's fire drill breakdown scene from the stress relief episode of The Office, Jimmy sent conflicting instructions to Hunter. Quote, "You need to call me now. Just got off the phone with your father. He is meeting with the O, aka Obama. Some outrageous acquisitions. We have the 2 biggest days of our business life in front of us. You and me, we have to deal with this now. You have to let me in to help. I'm with you 100%. Trust me. You need me in on this. We/you have too much to lose." He meant lose. "We must be smart or everything else goes up in smoke. Please call me. You must remain calm. Timing could not be worse. Calm and measured. Paybacks could come later." And then the next sentence, "As the report illustrated in section 2, the paybacks for Jimmy and the rest of the Biden clan did come later. In fact, Jimmy, the man who sent the email below, which by the way is like a 3rd grade level, was paid $82,000 per month for international business development from companies controlled by the CCP-connected oligarch Ye Jianming. But who is the O? The answer to that question eluded us for a time, but news reports from that period deciphered the puzzle. During that weekend in 2017, Joe was with Obama in Canada. In fact, Joe sat next to, quote, the O, and another scandal-ridden princeling similar to Joe's own son, the so-called Prince Harry. So that's just page 528. And again, we're the first group in the world, because this email, by the way, is not exclusive to Marco Polo. This email was posted everywhere in October of 2020. But we were the ones who went back and saw what Joe was doing at that time and placed him. That picture at the bottom of page 528 is that very same day or a day before of Obama with Prince Harry and Joe. And then we found another naked picture of Prince Harry on the cover of a magazine. It's like Hunter's long lost brother. So Prince Harry and Hunter have both been buck naked on the cover of a magazine, and we're supposed to grant these people respect. So so the answer to your question is it's definitely Obama. He's not the quote unquote big man or the big guy. He's the O. And he's involved in all of this because why would Jimmy Biden say so if he weren't? Why would Obama need to be consulted about business acquisitions if he's just running his foundation and another nonprofit? It's totally ridiculous. I would love for the investigators to ask Jimmy Biden about this email. The IRS whistleblowers released a transcript of a FBI and IRS interview conducted at the offices of Arnold and Porter in downtown Manhattan in November of 2022 with Jimmy Biden, and yet they did not bring up this email. It is unconscionable why they didn't bring up this email. This is one of the first things I would ask Jimmy. So, of course, I've been lovingly peppering the Republican congressmen and their staff to, when Jimmy does sit for a deposition, this needs to be one of the first emails they put in front of him. And again, this email is totally legitimate, been corroborated by the IRS whistleblowers. It's totally real. So I'd love to know what outrageous acquisitions they were planning with the 44th president.
Great. Well, let's go to Brunella. What's your question?
Hi, Kim. Thank you so much for this space, and thank you so much. Thanks all of you guys, because as you probably guess it and you know it, it's not just about US. It's the hell going on for Biden and friends, especially in Europe, guys. We are really, really in a bad situation. So the impeachment, I really hope that the people and the money is going to come not only from US, but from all over the world, because we need to stop these people. They're really dangerous for all humanity. My question for you guys is this: since you were mentioning, for example, Microsoft and Pfizer, I had Pfizer because those are the people actually that, imagine, in Europe now are offering the money to support all the right-wing parties that are coming up like mushroom in Europe all over without any reason. So the connection is still there. We have the ruin of Europe and the takeover of Europe, as you know, and they want to make in Europe the super state, right? Just because they want to have one colony to deal with instead of so many countries. My question for you is this. I've been trying to contact everybody about it because I actually happened to work for Atos. When I was in Tenerife, when I was living during the COVID in Santa Cruz de Tenerife, Breton, that is the commissaire of the European Commission, yeah, he used to be the owner, the CEO of Atos. And Atos, through Thales, is the Leonardo space company that actually have been imputed in somehow to be also, I don't know how far, and that's the question, to be investigated for the election that was between Biden and Trump. And as we know, Biden win. And I wanted to know if there is something going on there, because I find it a little bit funny that there is this connection between Breton from Europe, Atos, Thales, Leonardo Space, and the fact that Trump lost the election. But for somehow, I don't know why, this is a dead-end road. Like, we don't hear about anything about this. If there is something that is still working over there, something that is still cooking over there for this, or no? Thanks. I don't know if the question,
Well,
sorry, English is my second language, so maybe it's not very clear.
well, the only value add I have on that is the American who was talking about those allegations never provided any source data, namely Maria Zack. But I do believe those military industrial complex figures that you mentioned, Thales, and they're extremely dirty. They're the MIC of Italy. So I have nothing to dispute about that. It's just the American woman named Maria Zack refuses to provide any source data for her allegations of Leonardo in the election. So we're really at a standstill with that. Although I guarantee you that if anybody does find the source data for the effect of the military-industrial complex and those, basically they're quasi-state-owned enterprises in Italy, and they're going to be dirty. Let's put it this way, Kim. The reason why I think Kim and our group are such kindred spirits is because he knows the value of source data. What WikiLeaks did, releasing all of those cables, was so revolutionary and so cool and so amazing and so groundbreaking. And we really want to live in that world. And so we'll investigate anything that has that source connection, that has some paper trail, or if there's no paper trail, at least a verbal connection. But right now, the Americans who are bringing it up, Maria Zack and Michelle Roosevelt, are less than forthcoming and, in our opinion, liars. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question from Diligence.
Hi, yes, sorry, it was a little laggy. Thank you, Kim, for hosting this space. These spaces are the most effective means of change that I've seen in a very long time. So really, I appreciate you hosting this. And Marco, thank you for your courage, man. I can only imagine the amount of vitriol and attacks that you and your team get for sharing truth. So my question is about Congress. Are you getting a lot of congressional support from the majority for what you're doing? And are they trying to help you with protection of any sort, like whistleblowing protection or anything like that?
Yes, privately. They, I think, are reticent to, besides Ron Johnson, to recognize us publicly because they think it'll decrease the usefulness of us in whatever impeachment inquiry they have. But I mean, I'm talking constantly with staffers. I find that staffers do most of the work, right or wrong, on Capitol Hill, and I know that our report is littered all over the committee office space, which is good, which is what we wanted. We planned and intended for this to be a work that a congressional subcommittee. And you mentioned about vitriol. One of the goals of the Bidens, and it's so important that Kim is doing this space, is they want to figure out who our independent contractors are to then dox and attack each and every one of them. And it's disgusting. You know,
Yeah, but they're very good at protecting these people and keeping them in
yes,
the shadows. And there's a group of people working in the background that are lawyers, that are open
private
source
investigators,
intelligence experts. So there's a very competent team working in the background, and we'll keep them in the background because what they are doing is similar to what James O'Keefe is doing. These people are in the field actively seeking evidence and documents and fighting the good fight in the shadows.
That's a great point. And we have volunteers across the nation that are in open chats with us if we need to go to a courthouse to pick up a document or go to the Delaware Business Registry, right? So Joe has an S corp called Celtic Capri, and we were able to get utilize volunteers. That's what our strength is, right, guys? We won't always have the deep central bank coffers that they do, but we have numbers. And so one of Marco Polo's gifts is we have people spread out across the country. Some people can't give money, and that's totally okay. What we want is your time and help. So if you have any interest, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, hey, I do have a love of source documents. I don't have a large bank account, but I have time and the willingness to help, DM us. And it's very helpful if we have people spread out across the country in different jurisdictions that can go get documents for us, or do some recon work of a certain nature. So that's what we need to spread out. We need to have decentralized intelligence. That's how we beat them, is we have numbers on them. There's more of us in there than them by a factor of, I don't know, 5 to 10. And we should put them on an eternal mission of whack-a-mole. Right. So if the vitriol is
just an example of that, a couple of days ago, I made a tweet, and said that I know someone who knows someone who would pay a lot of money for the information about the companies that the Bidens have been using in foreign jurisdictions. They're shell companies that they use to launder all the money. And, there's now a really cool group effort of open source intelligence people looking up all the information that they can find about these shell companies. And already the results I'm seeing are amazing. And, what's so beautiful is that you do have the relationship with the staffers of the committee that are working on this impeachment inquiry, and any valuable intel that we get from those people that are basically our open source investigation team, will make it to the people in the House that are going to run this impeachment inquiry. So, we are
totally
actively seeking
1000%.
we're actively seeking additional evidence, and anyone who has anything on the Bidens, their companies that they have been using, if you want to get involved, if you are a gifted investigator, who wants to spend time on working on this, like, go ahead. We are ready to receive your information. We'll review it. We have a team that can, see if it's valuable, if it's credible, if it can be used, if it can be corroborated. So, this is an open source project where we want to make sure that Biden pays for his crimes.
That's such a good point. And that's how I met most of the people involved in Marco Polo. The people aren't political people. They're people who have intelligence, who came forward to me, and I met them through a shared love of, shared truths. There are certain truths that people recognize, and you start to feel like that you start to feel like now is the time, right? We actually bought, after the sad, what I would call an internal coup that went down at Project Veritas that took James O'Keefe out tragically through no fault of his own. We bought bebravedosomething.com. because that was Project Veritas, and we think we're taking the mantle. They used to have that phrase, be brave, do something. So if you go to bebravedosomething.com, it goes to our report, because that was the result of all of these people being brave and doing something. And we do a lot of genealogy work. So this is not, you don't need to have you don't need to be able to read a profit and loss statement necessarily to help us, right? You may have an interesting genealogy or something of that nature. For example, we found out that the Bidens not only have that precious little girl down in Arkansas who they just acknowledged after her 5th birthday, but there's a secret niece that the U.S. president has named Megan Biden, who was not even recognized on obituaries. And so this is a family that doesn't, if they don't like you, they don't even acknowledge that you're part of their family. And the reason why I bring this up is that was found by a volunteer who's just a dogged researcher and kept searching on Ancestry.com and other things and found this girl in Virginia who's Joe's niece. She's actually the daughter of Frank Biden. And so these are and what I'm trying to say is not all of us have the same interest. So with this laptop, you have different file types. Some people are going to be drawn to going through the PDFs. Some people are visual, and they went through all the pictures to find stuff. And so whatever your interest is, that's what we that's what we need. So we're not looking for any one type of person. What our basic requirements are: you love the U.S. Constitution and want to preserve it. And number 2, you'll follow the paper trail wherever it leads and no matter who it implicates, right? So a lot of people, yeah.
In essence, to bring it to the quintessence of what we're doing, this is a fight of good against evil. If you are on the side of good, you are going to help us take down the corrupt cabal that is destroying the world. And Gareth is right at the forefront of that. There would not be an impeachment inquiry right now if he didn't do the work that he's done on the Hunter Biden laptop. So they are trying to shut him down. They're trying to silence him, to bankrupt him. You can help him. There's a tweet up here in the Nest where you can donate to support his work. And for any dollar that you give him today, I'm going to double that.
We appreciate it. And hey, as a do-out, Kim, anybody listening to this, one thing that we're still digging on, we were able to find pictures for each and every person in the Biden laptop except this one figure who is on page, his name is Scott O. He's a Korean immigrant to the United States. He introduced the Bidens to CEFC, that CCP-tied company. And if you type in Scott O on our report, I think he's on 3 different pages. Here, I'm getting it pulled up right here. The first appearance of Scott O is on page 109, and we were able to find pictures for Alex Kotlarski, for Kathy Chung, but that is one person who we have not been able to find a picture of. We had multiple private investigators, obviously do some surveillance, obviously legal surveillance, like physical, not phone tapping or anything, but actually try to find out where he lives, and we still can't find a picture of him. And his daughter was in the same class as Hunter Biden's daughter at Sidwell, and he reached out to Hunter. The exact email that I'm alluding to is an October 4th, 2015 email from Scott O to Hunter about this CEFC deal. And so that's a thing right there. If you find a picture of Scott O, Marco Polo will be indebted to you forever, because that's one figure that features prominently in this, and we just couldn't find a photo of him. And yet
could become a key witness if James Comer subpoenas him as a witness. So this is an ongoing investigation, and everyone is invited to contribute. The data that you need to find your leads and what to look for is all in the beautiful book that Garrett and his team put together, 644 pages of evidence out of the Hunter Biden laptop. So that's basically all you need to get started.
Yes, that is a very good foundation. and
And all the
everything.
shell
Yeah.
companies are in there. And in the tweet that I made
Yes.
a couple of days ago, I named, all the shell companies are in the picture that I posted beneath my tweet. So that is a beautiful playground. Anyone who wants to dive into that and find out exactly what these companies have invested in, what kind of returns they have made on what investments, like all this information is out there. We just need people who want to spend the time to investigate this, and then any good lead that we get
Yes.
to forward to James Comer and his staffers to make sure that they are aware of it.
That's such a good point. We have provided, like you said, we can't take credit for something somebody else has done. All we could do was just provide the foundation. And I promise you, it has been the foundation for multiple subpoenas, the impeachment memo, the direction the committees are taking. We laid that foundation. One more thing, talking about different leads. We have a due out of Scott O's photo. If you can find that, we would love that. But one thing we found, Kim, is the judge overseeing the defamation lawsuit against Newsmax, and I know the head of Newsmax, Chris Ruddy. I sent him this inconvenient fact a couple days ago. The judge overseeing the case is a Superior Court judge in Delaware named Scott Davis, and Judge Davis, his chief clerk, is the daughter of Joe's power of attorney, Nina Monzak. Is the chief clerk overseeing a defamation case about the 2020 election, and her father is the power of attorney for a candidate in that election. How she's not recused from that case is beyond me. It's criminal that she's.
Wait. That's the daughter of the money laundering man
Yes,
of Joe Biden.
exactly. So I
Wow.
just reposted it. You
insane.
can go to our X profile right now. I said, everybody on the call, everybody on the call, go to our X profile and you'll see the tweet we made back on December 10th when I figured this out. Because the head of Newsmax said, hey, you got to look into this Eric Davis guy. There's something going on here. And sure enough, I look at his daughter, Nina, an attorney. She's the chief law clerk. So the person writing the opinions saying that Newsmax can't basically challenge the 2020 election results, her dad's Joe's power of attorney. And then we posted a picture of her dad and Joe together on a Middle Eastern congressional delegation trip. It's nuts.
All right, let's take some more questions, Garrett.
Yes.
Jenny, what's your question?
Did you say Jenny?
Yeah, that's you.
Okay, thanks. So really quick, thank you again. I'm not going to say what everybody else has said. The first time I heard about this, Kim, you had a space, I want to say a year ago about. I was pulling up some of the information from that. And since then, I just wanted to bring up a connection with J6. Igor Kolomoisky, the owner of 1+1 Media, was also installed as the financial guy in Ukraine after the coup. Now, this brings in Obama. And, he is funding a lot of these issues. And why I say that is Jacob Chansley was actually taking a picture with him on J6. He was the first person to film the first breach. So if you look at what we have here is like multiple ways where, and remember, Trump's first impeachment was on what? Ukraine. So this, to me, I think is a connection. And I'm trying to get you, Marco, I don't know if you've looked at that. And thanks again for what you do. I've been following you. I throw your report on everything I can that, around spaces, because people are slowly coming to the point that, Kim, you brought up a long time ago. Your spaces are incredible. You're, I think, the leading person for information on spaces. And I've been here for a long time. So I just want to thank you. I'm a huge fan of everybody who is balls enough to say what matters, and whistleblowers for what you're doing.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just posted a thing in response. I think it's called The Nest. Yes, The Nest. That shows all the time Kolomoisky is mentioned in our report. So Kolomoisky was actually called the oligarch, whereas Lachevsky was called a minigarch. I'm sure Jenny knows about this, but most people don't. Is that Kolomoisky was actually, according to Ukrainian investigators, the actual beneficial owner of Burisma. So what you had was the guy leading Privat Bank, which was the entity that received the IMF loans. Remember when Joey had the shakedown? That $1 billion was a loan guarantee that the money then flowed into the IMF, then went into Privat Bank. So Ihor Kolomoisky is the center of it. I think he's even more important than Zlochevsky, and he's on 4 different pages in our report. We're well aware of Kolomoisky. I think that Kolomoisky makes Joe even more nervous than Zlochevsky. In fact,
Well,
Joe
that is
in
why
a
Kolomoisky has now been arrested in Ukraine,
yes
and they're trying
to shut him up.
shut him up, just like they're trying to shut you up with lawfare. I mean, the neck is getting tighter, right? I mean, the rope around their neck is getting tighter. They're getting more and more nervous about what's happening here. And this impeachment inquiry really has the power to open up a lot of avenues of problems, and discovery into their corruption. So
If you don't mind, Kim, one thing I just want to say is I think it's really important. This thread, if you follow this thread with January 6th, this was a setup. Now, why would they want to set up people? They would set up the half of the population that doesn't agree with them. And what are they doing now? They're using private agency NGO funding, the CIA, the FBI, to follow these people almost to destroy their lives through ridiculous court cases. So what you have here is a double huge bag. Not only was it Burisma, not only is it Biolab, it's also J6 and the destruction of our country as a whole. Going back to Project Gladio, and NATO is a big cause of this. So people have to begin to get their brains straight. What's happening in the public is people are just saying it's Russia, it's Russia. I'm arguing with people all day saying this is Russian disinformation. Now, wait a minute. We cannot just throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I appreciate the ability to speak. And let me tell you something, this is our future. And these fighters and these warriors on this stage doing this right now are the reason that we all wake up and we breathe and what we do. So thank you. And I appreciate it.
Hey, Jenny, you seem to be quite knowledgeable and switched on about this stuff. Why don't you contact Gareth after the space and see if you can kind of help his efforts a little bit with investigating what's going on in Ukraine?
100%. I think Jacob Chansley actually would be your guy. He's the one that worked with Laura Loomer on the story for months and months. And we have a lot of information on Project Gladio and the infiltration. And I'll definitely get you guys in touch.
That's great. And to what Jenny just said, we just posted the video that I alluded to. So you could hear Joe in his own voice pressuring Petro Poroshenko on November 16, 2016 to nationalize Privatbank. And he brings up President Trump by name. And in our report, this is Joe. We say this is Joe closing up loose ends. He said that to Petro Poroshenko, I know Kolomoisky is a pain in the ass. What I don't want to happen is, this is Joe talking. I don't want Trump. This is what he said on November 16th, 2016. I don't want Trump to get in a position where he thinks he's about to buy onto a policy where the financial system is going to collapse. So they were trying to prop up Privatbank because he knew that IMF cash was going into Cypriot domiciled shell companies at the behest of Kolomoisky. And now even liberal investors have sued Kolomoisky civilly in the Delaware Chancery Court because that money from Privatbank went into buying American real estate through shell companies called Optima, the Optima Group. So,
what's also key here is that this wasn't just a normal call. Joe Biden threatened the physical and financial security of the then president of Ukraine. I mean, it's fucking insane, and that we even have this evidence.
Yeah. If there's one
mind-boggling.
That's so good. And if there's one favor I can ask of everybody, every listener on this space right now, is if there's one tweet that MP Marco Polo has made today, or one post that I would ask you to retweet, it's this audio call. This is totally confirmed. This was recorded on behalf of probably some Ukrainian aide in the room with Petro Poroshenko at the time. And he's saying, I would suggest that it's critical important, like Kim said, to your physical security that you nationalize Privatbank. Because he knew if they didn't nationalize it, which means if they didn't backstop it like our government did with JP Morgan and Silicon Valley Bank, people were going to, number one, lose their butt, and number two, start asking questions. And the last thing Joe wants is a bunch of us, 1,000 of us right now on this space, to start asking, who is Ihor Kolomoisky? That makes Joe more nervous than Hunter getting deposed, is if all of us start demanding a full accounting of the IMF funds that went into Privatbank.
This highlights also
And the reason why they arrested Kolomoisky now is because the fear of the leadership in Ukraine is that he gets out of the country and somehow makes it to a point where he becomes a witness in this impeachment inquiry. If Kolomoisky would be a witness under oath in this inquiry, it would be game over not just for Joe Biden, for Obama, the Clintons, the entire cabal that have basically instrumentalized Ukraine as their money laundering hub.
October 23, he also, Kolomoisky transferred ownership to a lot of his businesses. I mean, they own so much. It's almost like BlackRock of Ukraine, you know? And he transferred his businesses, especially the 1+1 Media, that funded on a visa the person to go in and film the first breach of the J6. You know, he gave that business away. I'll put that also in the bubble. I find that funny, but thanks again, guys.
Also, what I find funny is that Kolomoisky, I mean, karma is incredible, right? Kolomoisky was the guy who funded Zelensky, who gave him the stage to become president of Ukraine.
Yes.
His corruption put Zelensky center stage and made him president. And now it's the same guy who he helped to get elected, who's going after him because the US wants to stop him from becoming, or the Bidens want to stop him from becoming a threat to them.
Yes, I think Zlochevsky is important, guys, obviously, but like Kim said, and like Jenny said, Kolomoisky is 10 times more important than Zlochevsky. And Kolomoisky's who drives fear in the hearts of Antony Blinken. Because remember, Blinken's State Department is quote unquote has banned Kolomoisky from entering the country, and they did that in March of 22, March of 22, and that's in our report. And we call that a quote toothless move, a posturing move to say that they're going after corruption, when in fact that's making sure they're tying up loose ends, that this guy can't blow the whistle. We're not saying, you know, Kolomoisky's corrupt as hell, but he also knows things, and the best witnesses against mobsters are the other mobsters.
And there's dozens of Kolomoiskys in the United States that are the puppet masters behind the deep state, that are benefiting financially from their relationships with politicians. And Kolomoisky is the master puppeteer in Ukraine. So he is one of the key figures who could single-handedly take down the entire Democratic Party crime regime of corruption. And I wouldn't be surprised if this guy never sees outside of prison again, or if he would be killed, just to make sure that he can never become any kind of witness in any kind of serious inquiry.
Another sad.
Lastly, Newland and Blinken. Remember that, Marco Polo. You guys are cracking me
Yeah.
up here. Then we bring in Newland. So this is just insane. I got to be quiet now because I love this topic.
What's the best way to get a copy of your book, real quick, Marco?
Yeah, so the e-reader, which you can keyword search and which is totally free, is bidenreport.com, bidenreport.com. The physical copies are at bidenlaptopreport.com. And again, we went with a family-owned business out of Florida. The print quality is fantastic. We're now on our third printing, and we've shipped over 13,000 copies. The e-reader, the e-reader has been sent to every member of Congress and every senator. We've sent physical copies to all the Judiciary Oversight and Ways and Means Committee staff, along with certain congressmen. Right now, we're trying to find a donor to get a physical copy to the remaining 520 members of Congress. And what we're going to do is we're going to put on our website a video of me hand delivering it. It's going to be even better than a FedEx signature requirement, is me hand delivering it to these congressmen. So that's our next step, hoping to get that done by the end of the year or in spring of 24, because who knows how long this inquiry goes. And I would urge, the best thing we could possibly do is have our report entered into the congressional record, which is a large part of my focus right now, is getting this into the congressional record.
And one of the things that their defense at this point is, oh, there's no connection to Biden himself. They're trying to say as though, there's not, I mean, this report blows that out of the water, as Garrett could go on. And, you have, and one of the things I want to point out is there's victims that are sort of left behind, I guess, when you're speaking of Kolomoisky and these guys, but Viktor Shokin was completely screwed. I mean, they just destroyed this man's career, and he was, a legitimate prosecutor. And he just was completely trashed by Biden, who sat there at the, Council on Foreign, the
Council on
CFR,
Foreign Relations,
bragging about it,
that's
about
really,
his corruption, and they're all laughing it up.
His quid pro Joe at the
And you know,
Council
he
on
thinks
Foreign
it's some
Relations.
story about being a
one of
tough guy, about, you know, I told him, son of a bitch, in his typical.
That's the thing with Biden, though. He feels so safe in his position because he knows no one is going to investigate him. Let me give you one example. You know, we've done a couple of approaches to Biden to have him on the record that the mega upload case was basically his doing. So we sent a lawyer to a fundraiser that Joe Biden had where you could buy a seat at his table for a nice amount of money. We bought that seat. We placed a lawyer there, made him believe that this is like a copyright lawyer for the copyright industry, and Biden bragged at the table that mega upload was his case and he did it. You know, and it's just like this guy is so brazenly open about his corruption because he knows no one is going to go after him. But that's going to change now with this impeachment inquiry, and there's so much more to come. You know, unfortunately, the sad part is he's already so far gone. His mind is already toast. He's probably never even going to realize what's going to happen to him in the next coming years. But you know, that's the one thing that saddens me, that he will never really have to take responsibility for all of the crimes that he's committed.
That you put your finger on something that burns me up, having known this man for over 40 years and seeing the kind of sleaze that he is, having
Yeah, Tyler, could you go into your familial background with the Bidens and how, you know, you've been in family kitchens with Hunter and went to Archman with him? And tell people that background. This is not
Sure.
hypothetical, and this is not theoretical. Like Tyler grew up with.
I mean, I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, and my mother was she knew Joe going back to 1959, 60. A small Catholic school sort of environment. She went to the premier girls' school. He went to, at the time, the boys' school, which was Archmere Academy, which is where I went when I was a year behind Hunter, 2 years behind Bo. We all went to the same church every Sunday, St. Joseph's on the Brandywine. Joe had a house just across the road from there, which was an old DuPont estate, which was kind of run down. Funny stories around that, actually, how they let it. They're known for screwing people all over town. They'll have contractors come in, do $40,000 worth of work, and then just stiff them. Joe even stiffed his paper boy, to where the man's father had to go knocking on the door and saying, "Pay my son, you son of a bitch." And I mean, these people are just, they're grifters at even the cheapest level you can imagine. The types who, you know, barge their way to the front of a line, you know who I am, kind of thing. So, you know, I remember I was an altar boy, and, you know, Joe would come in. He would always come in late, make sure he made a big show of getting communion, and then walk right back out the back. And so we went to church with them. I again, in high school, went to school with, was right there with Bo and Hunt. And I started following Joe's career politically in 1984 when our class took a 7th grade trip to Washington, and he was the first person that I've been exposed to, like, in a political context, right there in a committee room. And I have to say, I mean, as a young person, sort of not gullible, naive about politics, I was very taken in by his he had a smooth tongue back then. He could really kind of make it sound interesting. He could bullshit his way through any conversation or any sort of remarks to a small group. Then I got a copy of Conservative Digest as a little 12-year-old geek at that point, or nerd, I guess, political nerd. And it had his voting record in the Senate. And I thought, this man is a monster, because I was very supportive of Ronald Reagan. So I immediately began working. My first campaign really was John Burris against Joe Biden in 1984. So my parents actually owned the property next to his original estate, the one that he sold to an MBNA executive for probably double or 3 times what it was worth, because they had run it down so badly. In fact, they had some
and that bank was employing Hunter.
Say again.
I said that bank was employing Hunter. That was Hunter's first job.
Card as vice president of council, MBNA America. And I worked with Hunter actually briefly with a company. I was a technology development company out of Newcastle in 2001. And he was at that time was basically running a lobbying shop at Oldacre and Biden. Bill Oldacre being an old-time connected Democrat lawyer who sort of ran things. Hunter was just the the connection to daddy, basically. But he always had the newest phone at the time. He changed his number like about every 2 weeks, I think. Paranoid as hell, of course, because he was running around, living the same lifestyle, not quite on the level that we saw after, say, maybe, I don't know, the more recent stuff with the crack and all that. But so I remember sitting with him and seeing not a single piece of paper even on his desk. I'm thinking, what attorney doesn't have a single pay? And I mean, and he's practically illiterate. And I thought it's when it dawned on me. I guess I thought, well, if he's making all this money, as I guess I was naive, he must be doing something. What does he do as an attorney? And I realized it's not, he doesn't do anything. He has people around him, and it's all about daddy's influence. And there's a recording of him. And Garrett, you probably might know the exact time or where he's being interviewed, I think it is, and says essentially that whatever he wants from his dad, he can get it. His dad will.
Yes, that is a December 2018 recording with a British-born author or artist named Philippa Horan, and he calls himself his dad's biggest advisor, and that his dad thinks of him as a god. So the idea that this is just a black sheep of the family and they've shipped off Hunter and don't talk to him anymore, and they brought Hunter in even more, and we posted the transcript to that conversation with Philippa Horan on our website.
And
Guys, I would like to wrap up the space in
Sure.
15 minutes. Let's take 4 more questions of the people that have raised their hands and have been patiently waiting, and then after that, I'll do like a final statement, and Gareth does a final statement, and then we wrap this up. All right?
That sounds good. I would just point out one last thing is also that
go
the
ahead.
voicemail in 2018 where Joe is referring to Hunter's in the clear because of the New York Times
Was that me,
article.
Kim? Cool.
If people don't think that Joe was involved in any way.
Okay, sorry, it glitched out a little bit there. So thank you. Thanks, Kim, for putting on this space and using your reach to get this message out by the great things that are being done. And also thanks actually for joining last night's Bitcoin space. And I think the fact that X exists in this form is just hugely powerful, because I don't think under other ownership these conversations wouldn't even been allowed to go ahead, and we need to support independent ventures and platforms to unlock from the machine. And just echoing what was said, this isn't just a US exclusive thing. I know people in the UK who've suffered huge personal and reputational damage for fighting truth and light, and they think that once they get you in the judiciary, it's their game and they can get to set the rules. And around the laptop, obviously, people came for the porn and stayed for the compromise, which has now been laid out so thoroughly by the Marco Polo team. And we have to remember, as the guys have said, Hunter was the useful idiot, and we've seen how every single member of the Biden family has been used within their grand corruption structure. And of course, before there was Hunter, there was Jim for many years carrying the bag.
I mean, there's no doubt that Joe Biden is the capo of this crime family. He is the coordinating power that has used basically every single member of his family, down to daughters receiving funds for his corruption.
And it's horrible actually that people are used that way just to allow structures and shell companies and things to exist, and for the machine to keep on rolling decade after decade. And after all, we all know what happens in Delaware, right? And there's no coincidence there. But I'm getting to my point, trust me. But the important thing not to lose sight of is that it should not be this dangerous to tell the truth. And the old labels of left, right, black, white, poor, rich are for the ages. And this is team humanity now against people who hate you, and they will want to keep you and take you down. And I get to my request. I'm absolutely going to support Garrett and the team here. And I'd like to take my time at this stage to make a sincere request to people listening to this, who may even be paid to listen, or who are involved from the other side, to do the right thing and whistleblow and expose how the snake rots from the head down. Daylight is the best disinfectant. And, would you feel proud of your life being used as a part of somebody else's game? So if there is anyone listening, and they've heard everything that's been said tonight. Do the decent thing and help us take down this gilded cage one piece at a time. And I think that's what I want to say. More power to your elbow, guys. You keep on going. People are behind you, and we will support you.
Thank you.
Wow,
That's awesome.
that was extremely articulate. I couldn't have said it better. And well, yeah, we're relying on those people on the inside to stop being involved in that. And hopefully, the best case scenario is that Mel does that. But we don't think Mel will ever do that. But Mel Monzak is the key. And I want to keep in touch with you, the user who just spoke. You get it entirely. And the thing I'll say about the incentive structure, it's such that these smaller folks believe that it's in their incentive to keep going along with it, but eventually it's going to come to pass where they write you off as a scapegoat. So you can even come to that opinion selfishly, saying, I don't want to be the scapegoat, and it's best that I get out now, as opposed to it going, south. And even if the Senate does not convict him, if he does get impeached, but the Senate does not convict him, the Senate trial will expose all of this. So the next time somebody asks you what crime are they impeaching Biden for, it's very simple. It's bribery, FARA violations, and money laundering. Right?
And
So,
you just made such an important point. The beautiful thing about this impeachment inquiry and the trial is that all of this is going to come to the surface. And those senators who are going to vote to protect Biden in light of, indisputable evidence of corruption, their careers will be over. Like, this is the Democratic Party on trial. If they go ahead and protect this guy who is literally the scammiest, corruptest individual, together with the Clintons and Obamas, to burn their careers. So I'm looking forward to this inquiry. I'm looking forward to the impeachment trial, because it will be nothing like what we've seen from the Trump impeachment. The Trump impeachment was a nothing burger compared to what's going to happen in this case.
and think about the quality of evidence. So there we were going off Eric Ciaramella, who is another Voldemort. The so-called whistleblower could not be named. Eric Ciaramella said that he heard something, and therefore Vindman submitted another whistleblower complaint. Think about the quality of that evidence. It's basically one person's interpretation of a single phone call, whereas with Joe we have wire transfers, emails, text messages, voicemails, audio recordings on the Voice Memos app, and 128,000 emails. That the quality of evidence from a forensic standpoint is it's not even comparable.
What's even
Yes, exactly. And now we have subpoenaed bank records. They're starting to basically have witnesses under oath. They have whistleblowers. This is a completely different magnitude of case than what they've put together against Trump. The Trump impeachment case is a complete joke compared to what you guys have created.
What's insane about the Trump impeachment was that they tried to hang him.
Gareth, thanks for the kind words, and if I can help you in any way, I will do. And let's remember, when that Trump impeachment case happened, Zelensky was the bad guy. Now he's the good guy.
Yes.
Right?
One last thing. Maybe you can meet up with Philippa Haran. She was born on the Isle of Wight, I think is how you say it. But she was Hunter's interlocutor in that. We just posted on our X page the transcript. So what I'm trying to say is, no matter where you are in the world right now, you're probably in a country that has some connection to the Bidens. Even if you lived in the Congo and were listening to this space, Hunter Biden's firm BHR bought a lithium mine in the Congo. So this touches each of us in a way. It's not just an American issue, although that is where it's ran from.
Yeah. Well, you know where to find me.
Interesting companies that the Bidens were involved in, and I want everyone to listen carefully. Hunter Biden created and invested in a company that sold pandemic insurance. before the COVID-19 pandemic. They were working with big reinsurance companies, telling them whenever there are major lockdowns because of a pandemic, businesses are going to lose money, and we want to provide them with an insurance product so that they can protect their businesses against lockdowns. I mean, how fucking obvious is the fact that Hunter Biden knew that something like this is coming and has been investing in businesses to profit from the COVID-19 pandemic?
It's unreal. And that person, Rob Walker, who was with Hunter involved in Metabiota, we just reposted that section of the indictment. So Rob Walker, named in the indictment as business associate one, was involved at the ground level in Metabiota. So Metabiota is mentioned in our report on page 62, and the exact entity for the devil's advocates at home about who want specificity. It's now called Pilot Growth, but this is a tactic that the Bidens use often, is they change the name of the entity all the time after a corrupt after an article that comes out that exposes something they've done wrong. They change the entity. So when Hunter was involved, it was Rosemont Seneca Technology Partners that put money into Metabiota and set up meetings. Hunter and his firm, Rosemont Seneca Technology Partners, set up meetings between the DoD and Black & Veatch and Metabiota. The same, because Black & Veatch was, I guess, the prime contractor, and Metabiota was the subcontractor or the secondary contractor under Black & Veatch. So it's all laid out in there, and it's absolutely nuts how Ukraine is that playground, like Jenny and you guys were talking about.
All right, let's take the question from Rob, and then Stacy, and then Hava, and then we're done.
Well, thank you so much, Kim and Garrett. I'm standing and saluting both of you. It's unbelievable to be on this space, and your courage and your leadership is really contagious. Kim, you said this is really a global fight of good versus evil. At the end of the day, at the 100,000-foot level, that is 100% what this is about. And it kind of reminds me to put it in perspective that, the Japanese leader said, when they attacked Pearl Harbor, it was like, oh my God, I think we awoke a sleeping giant. Well, today we have central bankers that awakened 195 sleeping giants. They attacked the entire world. And where we are today is all of this is manifesting since the stolen election of 2020. But it would not have happened had the stolen election not happened. So I'm going to ask a derivative question, and hopefully, Garrett, you can give me some information that I can take some action on this Tuesday. In Georgia, we know for a fact there are 17,852 fake votes recorded per Governor Kemp's legal team in a written notification to the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. And since then, crickets, nothing. We have legal notification that they accounted for and registered over 4,000 votes more than were necessary for Trump to have been awarded the state of Georgia. Nothing, crickets. So my point being what is the single most powerful connect, Garrett, that you might know of between Hunter's laptop and something relating to the stolen 2020 election, and specifically in Georgia? I've tried to search your document. I've looked through it. I've tried 16 or 17 different searches. I can't seem to find a connect. But what one thing would you add to on Tuesday? There's an official legal notice that's been sent out. Anybody interested can attend a 2-day Secretary of State Election Board meeting Tuesday and Wednesday at the Georgia State Capitol. And I want to put on the record, on the official Georgia Secretary of State record, anything that could be introduced as formal evidence in that Hunter Biden laptop that relates to the perverted election, and specifically, if possible, in the state of Georgia. Thanks so much.
It's a great question, and I'm going to disappoint you because Georgia specific is not there. What we have constantly harped on is a October 25th, 2018 call between Hunter and Greg Pinner, the chairman of the largest corporation on earth by revenue, Walmart, talking about running a joint ticket between Joe and John Kasich. And we not only transcribed this call, but we were the first to recognize that it was Greg Pinner on the other end of the line because Hunter recorded this call on his voice memos application. And Hunter and Greg were classmates at Georgetown, 1992. Greg Pinner struck gold literally by marrying into the Walton family. And so the section of our report that deals with 2020 relates to this call because you'll notice if you look in the FEC records that Greg Pinner was a huge Republican donor and really loved John Kasich and all the establishment politicians. And our thesis is a little bit different than some people on the right, which is, this is a battle between Republicans and Democrats. No, what the call on the laptop shows is that there was as early as October of 2018, Republican-leaning oligarchs colluding with Hunter to run Joe Biden as their guy. So that's what we have. And the transcript that we will post on our X profile right after this question proves that Greg Pinner was approaching Hunter as early as April of 2018. You'll see an email in our report as well from Greg Pinner. So, and by the way, Greg Pinner, if you're in Colorado right now, Greg Pinner also owns the Denver Broncos, which is another aside. So these people are connected in all facets of society is what I'm trying to articulate. So Greg Pinner and the Walmart connection. And you'll notice that Joe always spoke out about Walmart in his Senate days about the corporate welfare and how a lot of their workers take, welfare, which is a good point. But now that Greg Pinner has thrown his weight behind Biden, there's an article in Politico that came out in 22 that it says, it's in our report that says like the unlikely foes come together and how Walmart has been on these CEO calls with Joe now. And so I would say that the proof is that Republican donors hated Trump and they saw in Joe a vessel for a uniparty movement to get Trump out. And that's what we have. And we also have a slip of the tongue with Joe saying that they put together the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. Now, their plausible deniability is that was a mental fart, that Joe was not meaning to say that. But he's had Freudian slips many times before. That whole thing about she was 12, I was 30. Remember that Freudian slip? So there's multiple things connecting Hunter to the 2020 election. The one that I would focus on, because why? Because that's the oligarchs. Marco Polo's mission is we focus on these movers and shakers behind the politicians just as much as the lapel wearing politicians themselves. Joe is completely controlled, and that's why he's such an attractive vehicle for their plans, because he has very little agency because he owes all these people. And that is like having a dog on a leash. And if you're one of these people like Pinner, what better than to have somebody on the leash who has the nuclear button, So that's how I would answer that. Greg Pinner.
All right.
Well, Garrett, can I finish one quick question very quickly?
Rob, you had your question. I have to literally go to a meeting, and I'm already letting people wait. So let's do Stacy and Hava, and then we have to wrap it up. I'm sorry.
Okay, hello. Thank you so much, Gareth, for being here. Thank you, Kim, for hosting this space. I have a question, but first, in December 2020, I saw a Ukrainian press conference with two investigators who laid out all of the evidence with documentation and the receipts against Joe Biden. And I thought, hallelujah, there's no way this man can be inaugurated. This is it. This basically is the tip of the iceberg of a decades-long, pattern of money laundering. It's how the State Department, the Department of Justice, it's basically the pattern. When you have a serial killer that goes, they look for a pattern, and then if other if other people have died of those same thing, well, that's probably the serial killer. Well, we have a serial racketeering organization at the highest levels of our government, and it involves the Department of Justice, the Department of State, and the embassies. And they go into a corrupt country, they get their people, they set up their thing, and they go. And they have the same playbook probably in all of these Eastern Bloc countries that the U.S. has sent technical aid to. It is a technical aid embezzlement racket. And I posted something in the comments section, not in the nest, but just in the comments. I took screenshots of every English subtitle of that press conference, and I put them in there. So high definition photos. There are people named that are former ambassadors, still in the State Department, Department of Treasury, all those people running cover for Biden and to shut down the investigation. You don't do this kind of thing in a vacuum. So you can take down Biden. That'd be wonderful. And what did Obama say? Never underestimate, Biden's ability to F things up. Biden is the tip of the iceberg. And this presidency might be his reward for, staying quiet or whatnot. But I think he's effed it up for everybody in the system. And I think they might make him the scapegoat after all. And yes, we need to take him and prosecute him for his crimes. But every person that made this possible over the last decades, this whole thing needs to, because now we're sending how much Ukrainian aid still, it's still going on. And so I would just recommend that for the committee to take a look at that, because I sent these tweets out to people before Biden was inaugurated. Nobody bothered to look into it. And I
Well,
didn't hear
it's an
anything.
incredible press conference. I've watched it probably 5 or 6 times with Andre
Good.
Durkog. The
Yes.
left-wing narrative is that Durkog is this Russian agent, and our Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin didn't help us out at all by labeling him such. However, this is a big semicolon. Even if he doesn't hate the Russian leadership, the stuff that he's brought forward is all authentic. The calls
Right.
between Joey and Petro are real.
Well, and
Nobody's even denying them. So it doesn't matter whether or not he likes the Russian leadership if the audio is legitimate audio, and it is.
And one
And
of the
they
biggest
also
things too.
have a
I'm sorry.
witness who was basically involved in the bank transfers that
Yes,
gave
that's
testimony about that.
that's what I wanted to say. If they can, because that went right into Rosemont Seneca's account. That Burisma Holdings Limited was not an official Burisma account. It was a account set up by the 2 witnesses, as you saw on that press conference. So if they can establish that account that paid Hunter Biden was dark money, it was a personal account for the illegal activities, and that account was paid into from the U.S. contracts through like WireLogic and Digitex, which would set up the fake contracts and get U.S. technical aid and pay it into that money laundering account, which would then directly pay Hunter Biden. So I don't know if that's possible.
Here's one important thing that I want everyone here to understand. If there was peace in Ukraine, and let's say that peace would no longer involve Zelensky, who is protecting the Democrats that have been looting, money out of Ukraine and laundering money out of Ukraine. If all of that would fall apart and they would no longer have that protection, and Putin would be in a position where he will have a government that will be pro-Russian. He will not agree to any peace agreement where anti-Russian sentiments are going to continue and the attack against Russia is going to continue. One of the demands is going to be, or one of the outcomes of this war is going to be, that those people who are protecting the corrupt politicians in the US are gone. And that is the reason why Hunter is such a critical piece of the puzzle with his work that he's done in Ukraine. That is the reason why Joe Biden will not allow peace in Ukraine. He cannot afford it. The Democrats cannot afford it because there's so much evidence of their corruption and wrongdoing in Ukraine that if ever there would be a peace and a Russia-friendly government, all of this stuff would surface, all of this evidence would become available, and their entire house of cards would fall down. So Ukrainians are dying by the thousands every week because Joe Biden cannot afford for Russia to win this war.
It's so unreal, but it's our reality, and we all have to get used to. And think about it this way: the European monarchies of old that were strong 400 years ago, they were as corrupt as this, but their citizens didn't have real-time access to the verifiable proof of their corruption. That's what's making them so nervous. Is that when the serfs of old were suspicious of their leaders, they had no way to redress their grievances and get the word out. That's why this X space and making sure that we can keep posting on X is so unbelievably great. It's one thing I think they didn't war game for. The folks at the Aspen Institute and this Council on Foreign Relations probably didn't war game for X not being under their control, and we have to utilize that.
This is much bigger than the Bidens. Everyone needs to understand this involves the Clintons, this involves Obama. This is way bigger. Like, the Democrat Party leadership is all implicated in this. And if they lose in Ukraine, their entire ship is going to sink. And this is why I am so worried. And I keep telling everybody, this war is going to escalate simply because they cannot afford a change of leadership in Ukraine. Just imagine for a moment Zelensky is gone and someone else comes in who's not willing to protect all of these corrupt US players that have made this proxy war possible in Ukraine, that have basically wrecked their entire country and economy and cost hundreds of thousands of people their lives. Just imagine for a moment what that would mean to those corrupt politicians. They will all be on the chopping block. So please understand that this war in Ukraine will keep escalating. And we are talking about a war against a nuclear power, Russia, which has the ability to destroy the United States. And yet this is how far they're willing to go. They don't want peace with Russia. They keep escalating. They want to send more money, more weapons to Ukraine to keep this thing locked in. So, that is
They
why I
need to burn
try
the
and
crime scene. They need to burn the scene of the crime. Get rid of all the evidence.
That's exactly right. They're burning a crime scene.
But what if our country is also a crime scene? And that's what I'm afraid of with the escalation, is that they might allow something happening in our country in order to promote chaos and to burn the records.
Well,
so that
you've
we can
already
never trace it.
seen that with the stolen election, with Chase. I mean, the evidence is just mounting and mounting. Just look at the media these days. Look at what's happening in Israel. There's a clear case of, mass murder against a civil population, war crimes, genocide being committed with US support, US weapons, US vetoes in the United Nations. And the media in the United States is selling this as self-defense. I mean, how fucking sick are these people? It just shows how corrupt the entire system is. It's unbelievable. 90 journalists have been killed in Gaza over the last 3 months. That's more than in World War II or even in the Vietnam War. They don't want people to, know about what's going on there. And they're willing to go to extremes now because they know they have the ultimate protection. They have the media to protect them, and they have all the institutions under their control that would ever investigate them or be any threat to them. That's why right now there's no more boundaries to what crimes they can commit, because there's nothing that's stopping them.
That's why these spaces are so important, right? And the decentralized efforts of us to bring this information to the public.
All right, let's take the last question from Hava, and then we're wrapping this up.
Hey, Garrett. How are you?
Hey,
Can you hear me?
Yes,
There you are.
yes, good to hear from you. How are you?
Yeah, this is just more a comment for the listeners. I just want to say a lot of people have, I think, said it very well, but I've had the privilege to be able to work with Garrett in a different capacity at a different time, and I just want to emphasize that he is extremely careful and he is very, very frugal with his money. I've worked with and been involved in a lot of nonprofits, and frankly, I'm kind of at the point where I don't even like to donate to nonprofits anymore, just seeing how, money is handled in the back. But Garrett is extremely frugal. And I also want to comment that I do see his work being shared with journalists or, like show hosts and that type of thing. And I know that it's really good for all that information to get out, and that's amazing. However, they're not the ones that are going to be taking the hit or are taking the hit. And so, one thing that we could maybe do is just tag him and his organization, just so that it brings awareness to his organization and what's going on to direct people there to support them. And that's all I wanted to say. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Yes, I've known Hava for over 3 years. And, one of the last thing I'll say is Marco Polo is not made up of, we're not made up of political types. We have no sociopaths on our team. There's no inner conflict. I know that it was sad for everybody to watch the dumpster fire of Project Veritas. That was sad as hell because they've done great work. And, we're committed to making sure that when people support nonprofits, that there's updates. So please follow us here on X. We after our legal decision in October, I released a 20-minute video detailing exactly where the legal fight stood. If you're going to give to a cause, you probably want an update, right? So that's what I pledge to you: is all of our tax returns will be released. The litigation updates will happen. We're an open book. If you have questions about our attorneys, our legal strategy, send us a DM. I appreciate this, Kim. We've already raised $14,000 on this space.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And thank you to everyone who has been contributing. We really appreciate it. This is a time where it matters, because they're trying to bankrupt Gareth and his organization. He is fighting the good fight. He is the best representative of good that I can imagine. Thank you for your courage, Garrett. You are an incredible character. I love you. I love what you are doing. I want you to continue what you're doing. And I will be in your corner and I will have your back all the way. Like, you're not going under. I will not allow it. And we'll win this fight.
Thank you so much. Much love to you as well. And you'll see me again. We'll meet up in 24 again. God bless you all. Thank you for the opportunity. And again, go to our site, Marco Polo 501c3, for all the source data. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, and also the tweet that I made is up in the nest, where you can find how to donate to Marco Polo. You can either send a dollar donation or a fiat currency donation, or you can use crypto as well. There's another link for crypto payments. And like I said in the outset of this space, I'm going to double any donation that is being received today, so that George and his people can defend themselves against the lawfare that Joe Biden and his henchmen have unleashed on Garrett in order to silence him, to shut him down, and we will not allow that to happen. So if you want to contribute to his fight and for him to succeed and being, such a good source for important information for this impeachment inquiry, please go ahead and support him. And all of that being said, thank you all so much for listening. We'll surely do a follow-up space, and we'll keep you posted about developments, in the next coming weeks and months. And thank you, Garrett, and everyone else on the Marco Polo team for your excellent work. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. God bless you.